Chapter 4775. At this point, Lu Ziyu could no longer keep Ren Zhongyuan under house arrest. He could only instruct, go and call Ren Zhongyuan over. Just say that Captain Okuda is here to visit him. A short while later, under everyone's gaze, Ren Zhongyuan arrived at the canteen in a pompous manner. His footsteps were filled with joy, showing off his prowess. Uncle Okuda, I'm really sorry for disturbing you. Your nephew apologizes. Ren Zhongyuan did not even look at Lu Ziyu and the others. He walked to Okuda's side and sat down as if there was no one else around. It seemed like the two of them had a pretty good relationship. What's there to apologize about? As an uncle, isn't it only right for me to visit my nephew? Huh. Okuda patted Ren Zhongyuan's shoulder and gestured to everyone. Everyone, don't just stand there. Come, let's eat. Ren Zhongyuan looked smugly at Lin Yi, who was sitting opposite him. His face was filled with provocation, and he even made a dangerous gesture of slitting his neck. He did not think much of Lu Ziyu at all. After all, on this ancient warship, Lu Ziyu was no match for Okuda. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Okuda without batting an eyelid. With such a powerful backer suddenly appearing, things were going to be a little difficult to handle. It seemed like Okuda would definitely not let the matter rest and would definitely make use of this opportunity to stir up trouble again. As expected, they had only eaten a few mouthfuls when Okuda suddenly said, Vice Dean Liu, other than coming here to visit the East Continent's disciples, there's another important matter I want to discuss with you. Oh, Captain, feel free to speak your mind. Lu Ziyu exchanged glances with Lin Yi and the others, his heart skipping a beat. It's like this. We have a lookout position on the warship, responsible for monitoring dangerous situations. I don't think I need to explain the importance of this position. Without a lookout, we won't be able to continue sailing at sea. Unfortunately, our original lookout has fallen ill. In order to not waste time at sea, I want to choose one of you East Continent's disciples as a substitute. Of course, the prerequisite is that they have sufficient sailing experience, Okuda said meaningfully. This, Lu Ziyu was slightly taken aback and was about to ask everyone who had sailing experience. However, before she could say anything, she was interrupted by Okuda Dam. I heard that the treasure ship from the North Island encountered pirates in the sea fog when it was on its way to the West Island. At the critical moment, a disciple named Lin Yi stepped forward bravely and personally took the helm to avert the danger. I think this young man is good. I'll choose him, Okuda Ba insisted. As soon as he said that, everyone's gazes instantly focused on Lin Yi. Some people sympathized with him, and of course, there were also people who rejoiced in his misfortune. Everyone could see that Okuda Ba was standing up for Ren Zhongyuan this time, and his target was Lin Yi. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's complacent smile, as if he had succeeded in his scheme, Lin Yi remained unmoved. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei, on the other hand, were secretly anxious, and both looked towards Lu Ziyu for help. This so-called danger lookout was definitely a pit of fire. Once he agreed, Lin Yi would definitely suffer greatly. Captain Okuda Ba, Lin Yi, is a new disciple, and he's also the prince consort of the West Island. Isn't it a little inappropriate to suddenly let him take up such an important position? Why don't you consider other disciples? Lu Ziyu argued. Vice Dean Liu, don't blame me for not giving you face. On this battleship, my orders are above everything else. As he spoke, Okuda Ba's aura suddenly changed, and an overwhelming pressure instantly pressed down on everyone's heads. Lin Yi was the first to bear the brunt of it, and when he heard Okuda Ba's cold voice, he said, He doesn't want to do it? Very well then. Men, throw him overboard. Everyone's countenances instantly paled. Just a moment ago, he had been laughing heartily, yet in the blink of an eye, he wanted to throw someone overboard. This captain really changed his attitude faster than flipping the pages of a book. Stop! Lu Ziyu's countenance changed, and she similarly unleashed an overwhelming aura to stand against him. Although she was not as strong as him in this place, Lin Yi was someone whom she had acknowledged long ago. It wouldn't be so easy for him to take Lin Yi away. The atmosphere suddenly became extremely tense. Once these two big shots were to stand against each other, the deterrence and destructive prowess would be unimaginable. Although there were no weaklings among the people present, they would really not be able to withstand such repercussions. Just the pressure from the aura alone was enough to make them unable to withstand it. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly stood up, and his gaze landed on Okuda Ba's face in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. He said calmly, "Hold on. Isn't it just a lookout? No problem. Since it's a job for the entire battleship, then it's also for ourselves. I'll accept this job." The moment he said this, everyone present was astonished. Ren Zhongyuan even smirked coldly when he heard this. Even at the brink of death, he still did not forget to elevate himself. At this moment, he was still thinking of putting on an act. What a fucking fool. Good, very good. You have ambition. Okuda Ba instantly retracted his aura, pointed at Lin Yi, and laughed out loud. The captain, like young people with guts. However, I'll say this first. Once you're on the lookout, you'll be treated the same as the other crew members. To me, the sea is a battlefield. If you really make any mistakes, you'll be dealt with according to military law. These words frightened Ning Xuefei and Huiyuti. This was basically forcing Lin Yi into a dead end. Usually, even if he made some mistakes, nothing could be done about it. After all, he was a temporary substitute from the East Continent. However, if he were to be dealt with according to military law, all his paths of retreat would be blocked. At that time, a single word from Okuda Ba would be able to take Lin Yi's life, and even Lu Ziyu would not be able to stop him. Lu Ziyu's brows furrowed tightly, and she was just about to find an excuse to take back this job of causing death. However, it was a pity that Okuda Ba did not give her the chance to do so. After he finished speaking, he stood up and left, leaving behind a string of hearty but vicious laughter. Hurry up and go to work after lunch. We're all counting on you, the lookout, to protect and escort us. Don't make any mistakes, ha ha ha. Ren Zhongyuan laughed complacently as well. As expected, once a great god like Okuda Ba took action, someone like Lin, he did not even have the slightest ability to retaliate. Just a few words from him were enough to send him into the fire pit. This feeling could only be described with one word: awesome. Master, what should we do now? Huiyuti anxiously asked Lu Ziyu for help. There was still some room to turn things around now. But once Lin Yi really went up to the lookout, it would only be a matter of a few words for him to be taken advantage of. By then, everything would really be too late. Chapter 4776. Wait a minute, Deputy Dean Liu. Thank you for your kindness, but you don't have to be so troublesome. It's just a dangerous situation, lookout. I'm experienced in this kind of thing, and it's not a problem. Lin Yi stopped her with a faint smile. Really? Lu Ziyu looked at him suspiciously, wanting to say something but stopping on second thought. She had heard that Lin Yi controlled the treasure ship of the North Island to get out of danger, but in the eyes of most people, including her, it could only be attributed to Lin Yi's good luck. After all, everyone had their own specialties. If he was not a really experienced old shipwright, he couldn't be a dangerous situation lookout at all. You'd better not force yourself. With your ability, you just need to monitor the dangerous situation, and I believe there's no problem. But they obviously want to find fault with you, and it's hard to guard against them, Huiyuti said worriedly. Yeah, if you must go, take me with you. I'll go wherever you go. Ning Xuefei said decisively. Fei, don't mess around. I'm just going to be a lookout. It's not as serious as you think it is. Plus, they won't let you go up to the lookout tower. Lin Yi laughed when he saw the girls follow the chicken. If she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, then so be it. Right, Fei, you really can't go. Your identity is too sensitive, and no one dares to let you go to the watchtower. I won't allow it, either. You'd better stay with us. Lu Ziyu stopped her immediately. If something happened to Lin Yi, she would be sad, but it was only limited to personal feelings, and it wouldn't have too much impact on the overall situation. But Ningxue Fei was different. Once the successor of West Island had an accident here, West Island and Dongzhou State would definitely fall out with each other instantly. Then West Island and Dongzhou State would definitely fall out with each other instantly. By then, thousands of people would die because of this. This was related to the overall situation, and there was no room for any mistakes. In fact, Lu Ziyu believed that even Okuda Dam, who deliberately targeted Lin Yi, would never dare to let anything happen to Ningxue Fei. Otherwise, in order to appease the anger of West Island, he, the captain, would definitely be pushed out as a scapegoat, and there would be no chance for him to survive. But Ningxue Fei still held Lin Yi's hand tightly. He wanted to say something more. There are no buts. There's no room for discussion on this matter. Your mother entrusted you to me. I definitely won't let you take the risk, Lu Ziyu interrupted. Seeing Ningxue Fei's helpless expression, Lin Yi smiled and patted her hand, comforting her. It's not like you don't know my strength. This small matter can't stump me. Don't worry, Fei Fei. Then, Ningxue Fei hesitated for a long time. He nodded helplessly and said, All right, I'll listen to you and Aunt Lu. However, if you're in danger, I'll be the first to rush over. The observation deck is not a guillotine. It's not that dangerous. Don't worry. Lin Yi laughed. After much persuasion, he finally managed to persuade Ningxue Fei. However, when he turned his head, Hui Yudi suddenly bit her lips and said, Fei Fei can't go. I'll go with you. Lin Yi was instantly speechless. He had finally managed to persuade one, yet another came. It was really asking for his life. He could only say helplessly, I'm going to monitor the situation, not to go on an outing. What are you going to do? I can help you, Hui Yudi said with a serious expression. Help me? How can you help me? Have you done this before? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously. Not really. Hui Yudi thought for a while, then said, but my nose is very sensitive. I can more or less be of some use. Lin Yi suddenly didn't know what to say. This little girl's train of thought was really wild and imaginative. Which danger lookout relied on their nose to do their work? Helpless. Lin Yi could only turn to look at Lu Ziyu. He hoped that this master of hers would come forward to persuade her. In the end, he didn't expect Lu Ziyu to actually nod and say, All right, Dai you go with Lin Yi. Be careful. Pooh. Hearing that, Lin Yi instantly choked. Not only was Hui Yudi's train of thought unique, even her master was a kindred spirit. Indeed, like teacher, like disciple. Actually, the reason why Lu Ziyu agreed so readily was because she wanted to make it up to Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Ningxue Fei were both people that Ning Shangling had entrusted to her to take care of. In the end, because she wasn't forceful enough, Lin Yi ended up in danger. Letting Hui Yudi accompany him would at least be able to take care of him. On the other hand, it was because she could see through her precious disciple's thoughts, so she decided to help him. Hearing their conversation from afar, especially when he heard that Hui Yudi was going to accompany Lin Yi to the observation deck, Renjun, who was still feeling smug, was instantly enraged. He was clearly the one who pushed Lin Yi into the fire pit. So why did he inexplicably create a chance for him to be alone with Hui Yudi? The observation deck was high up, almost completely isolated from the people below, and no one would disturb them. Lin Yi and Hui Yudi were basically in a world of the two of them. How was this a fire pit? It was simply a land of gentle beauties. However, Ren Zhongyuan had no way to stop them. He could only grit his teeth and console himself. Go on, go on. I'll let you see Lin Yi for another 2 days. In less than 2 days, this guy will be a dead man. After lunch, Lin Yi and Hui Yudi went to the crew's work area under the gazes of Lu Ziyu and Ningxue Fei. The first mate of this ancient warship glanced at the two of them. It seemed that Okuda had already informed him beforehand. He lazily reclined on a chair and asked, Didn't you say that there's only one substitute lookout? Why are there two? This is my assistant. Lin Yi replied calmly. Hui Yudi insisted on coming along no matter what, and she even had Lu Ziyu's support. He had no other choice. Assistant? The first mate sized up Hui Yudi with a slanted gaze, and said with an evil smile, What assistant? An assistant to liven things up at night? I have to say, it's quite boring up there. If you don't find something to do, you'll go crazy. Seeing that you're so pitiful, I'll be your assistant." These words caused Hui Yuti's face to turn red, and even Lin, he felt a little embarrassed. He really hadn't thought about this. The observation deck is up there. You guys go up there yourselves. I don't need to explain the duties of this position, right? Report the dangerous situation in real time and give timely and accurate instructions to avoid danger. If there's even the slightest mistake, hee. The first mate looked at Lin Yi with pity. The latter half of the sentence did not need to be said. It was nothing more than if he had something on them, Okuda would definitely take the opportunity to punish them. Because of Lin Yi's negligence, the entire ship's crew would be in danger, so it would be useless no matter who tried to explain. Military law was not something that could be casually said. Chapter 4777. Hee, what do you think? The first mate smiled but did not say anything. In fact, Okuda-ba's claim that the lookout was sick was pure nonsense. Even if Okuda-ba agreed to give such an important position to a layman, the other crew members would never agree to it. After all, who would dare to put their lives in the hands of a layman? The lookout was actually hiding on the backup lookout. Lin, it was just a prank. No one would really take him seriously. Lin Yi and Hui Yuti turned around and went up to the lookout. It was the highest point. Standing there, they had the best view of everything. As long as the visibility was good enough, not only could they clearly see the ancient warship below, but they could also see the sea within a radius of hundreds of miles. Of course, if there was fog, then there was nothing they could do. However, the weather these 2 days had been great. The sky was clear for miles, and there wasn't even a single cloud in the sky, let alone sea fog. Lin Yi and Hui Yuti were just enjoying the scenery. The scenery here was unique, and they couldn't see it from other places. It wasn't a wasted trip. They did not encounter any danger during the past 2 days. Naturally, Lin Yi did not need to issue any evasive orders. He felt quite comfortable watching the scenery and chatting with Hui Yuti. Hui Yuti also enjoyed this. Being able to enjoy the sea breeze while snuggling up with Lin Yi was the most wonderful thing she could think of. However, she also knew that this would not last for long. Even if Lin Yi could not let Okuda-ba catch him, the two would have to be separated when they reached the East Continent. It was unknown if they would even see each other again in the future, let alone spend time together. After nightfall, the sky was filled with stars, and the sea was dotted with stars. All this dreamy scenery set off the atmosphere of the two's world especially warm and romantic. The two, who were already snuggling up to each other, could not help but feel a little charming. Hui Yuti seemed to have thought of something. Her cheeks blushed as she called out softly. "What happened?" Lin Yi turned his head to look at her, then hurriedly turned his head back, not daring to look again. At this moment, under the beautiful night sky, Hui Yuti's temperament was both pure and charming. The two intertwined to form a strange temptation. Even with Lin Yi's self-control, he almost couldn't control himself. "The poison on my leg seems to be relapsing again." Hui Yuti bit her lips, lowered her head, and said shyly, Can you help me suck it again?" "Huh?" Lin Yi was stunned. The poison had been sucked clean a long time ago. How could it suddenly relapse? Under his gaze, Hui Yuti's face turned even redder. Her originally fair neck became an alluring shade of crimson. She urged in a low voice, "Hurry up." Lin Yi speechlessly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He finally understood what Hui Yuti was hinting at. This girl couldn't have been reminded by the first mate's joke, right? The atmosphere fell into silence. Facing Hui Yuti's cute and shy expression, Lin Yi suddenly felt a trace of tenderness in his heart. He forcefully suppressed his instinctive impulse and said with difficulty, "Yuti, I can't give you any promises. After we go to the Eastern Continent, we might—" "I don't care." Hui Yuti used her hand to cover Lin Yi's mouth. The two of them were only a finger's distance away from each other. They could both feel each other's hot breath. Their breathing and state of mind were already in chaos. Just as Lin Yi was about to say something, Hui Yuti suddenly made an extremely bold move. She actually reached out and pressed Lin Yi's head to the bottom of her skirt. After tonight, there might not be another chance like this. As a girl, she had already thrown caution to the wind. Smelling the familiar fragrance of the other party's body, Lin Yi's heart was in a mess. She had already done this. What should he do? At this moment, an extremely urgent warning sound came from the jade pendant on his chest. Lin Yi immediately quivered and hurriedly stopped Hui Yuti's bold move. In a hurry, he glanced at the sea in front of him and hurriedly activated the sound transmission array on his hand and shouted, "Change direction. There's danger." At this moment, Okuda Dam and the Real Danger Lookout were on another backup lookout. When they heard Lin Yi shout through the sound transmission array, they were both stunned. "There's danger." In shock, the two of them hurriedly looked around carefully. Although visibility was not high at night, with the help of the starry sky and the glowing creatures in the sea, they could still clearly see the situation within a few miles. Everything seemed calm and peaceful. "Danger my ass." The lookout and Okuda Dam looked at each other and angrily scolded. "It's a false alarm. This kid really doesn't know anything. What a fucking scam." Okuda Dam's expression was also a little ugly. According to his original plan, he had planned to use Lin Yi's ignorance. If he really encountered danger, he would definitely not be able to detect it in advance, let alone give a timely and accurate warning. Although they were on the backup lookout, if the situation was not particularly critical, they would not make a sound. This way, they could use their own trick to trick Lin Yi. After all, for a supergiant like the ancient warship, a small danger would not cause any damage at all. It could be easily crushed. This way, not only would there not be any accidents, but it would also give them an excuse to punish Lin Yi. In the end, the two of them did not expect such a situation to occur. There was clearly no danger, but this kid Lin Yi was shouting in the voice transmission formation, causing them to be worried for nothing. This was simply a false report. In the voice transmission formation, Lin Yi was still repeatedly warning them, but there was no response from below. Everyone knew that the real danger monitoring the situation was the second lookout, which was now a stage. Before the second lookout spoke, no one would care about him. At this moment, Okuda Dam's voice came from the voice transmission formation. He said coldly, "What are you shouting for? Do you know how much of a loss you'll bring to us if you make a wrong judgment? Once we deviate from the established route, it's very likely that we will hit the reef, and it will consume a lot of extra spiritual energy. It might even cause the formation to not have enough energy to gather. Can you bear the consequences? Quickly change the direction. There's danger ahead." Lin Yi ignored him and continued to shout. Although the others on the warship could not hear him, every place with a voice transmission formation, including the control room, could hear his voice. "Kid, how dare you shout here? Do you know what the punishment is for lying about a military situation? Do you really want to die?" Okuda Dam was instantly enraged. Chapter 4778. He wouldn't get angry because of such a small character, but now he really wanted to kill this kid. Seeing that the people below were still indifferent, Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. Ignoring Okuda Ba's threat, he gathered his vital energy and roared, "Everyone be on guard. Protect yourselves." His voice was like a clap of thunder. With the help of various voice transmission formations, Lin Yi's voice was heard throughout the ancient battleship. Not only could the crew hear it, but even the disciples of the East Continent in the living area could hear it. All of a sudden, the entire battleship was in chaos. After shouting, Lin Yi could no longer care about anything else, let alone the enraged Okuda Ba. He protected Hui Yuti and escaped from the observation deck. The observation deck was a good place to look at the scenery when there was nothing going on, but when there was danger, the observation deck was often the first to suffer. Lin Yi did not have the habit of holding on under a dangerous wall. When Okuda Ba saw this scene from the second lookout tower, he flew into a rage. He had clearly heard his warning, but this brat still dared to create chaos so brazenly. Now, he even wanted to escape. This was intolerable. Even if it wasn't for Ren Zhongyuan, he would definitely tear this brat into pieces. In his rage, Okuda Ba stood on the top of the second observation deck and released his aura. In a trance, even the sky seemed to change color. This time, he planned to take down Lin Yi personally and publicly punish him as a warning to others. However, just as Okudaba was about to launch an attack, the official lookout on the second observation deck suddenly had a change of expression. He exclaimed, "Captain, this is bad. There's a group of sea beasts ahead." "What?" Okudaba was so shocked that he staggered and quickly looked at the sea in front of him. Everything was pretty much the same as before. The surroundings were still calm and peaceful, and there were no signs of surging waves or the so-called horde of sea beasts. The only thing that was slightly strange was that the sea in front of them was pitch black, with not a single ray of light to be seen. Okudaba did not react for a moment. He was not a lookout, so he was not that sensitive to these clues. However, he was an expert, a giant-level super expert. Without hesitation, he instantly released his divine sense. At this time, without the interference of the sea fog, with Okudaba's strength, his divine sense could cover the sea tens of miles away. This time, his expression suddenly changed. There really was a group of sea beasts. 20 miles away, an extremely large group of sea beasts was approaching at a rapid speed. There were at least hundreds of sea beasts, and their speed was unparalleled. Okudaba was shocked. He had been sailing on the sea for hundreds of years and had been a captain for dozens of years. However, he had never seen such a terrifying group of sea beasts. Every sea beast here was at least at the original infant stage. Profound ascension stage beasts could be seen everywhere. There were even several mountain opening stage beasts. What was even more shocking was that the group of sea beasts was rushing directly towards the battleship. It did not seem like they were just passing by. Instead, they were directly targeting the battleship. What was going on? As the ultimate weapon of the endless sea, the ancient battleship was set up with the highest level of beast-frightening array. Normally, no sea beast would dare to approach within 100 miles. Even the sea beasts of the mountain opening stage would not dare to provoke them. But why did it suddenly fail this time? In the blink of an eye, the group of sea beasts had shortened from 20 miles away to 10 miles away. Their speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The originally calm sea was already surging with waves, and in an instant, a monstrous wave was formed, crushing towards the huge ancient battleship. There was no time to think about it. Okudaba quickly returned to the number 2 lookout and shouted, "Everyone, listen up. Activate the defensive array. Activate the offensive array. Everyone, get ready for battle." At this time, it was impossible to dodge. Such a huge monster could not change its course so easily. Unless they reacted when Lin Yi gave the first warning, they would still be able to make it in time. With the super powerful thrust of the battleship's power array, if they listened to Lin Yi's warning and changed the rudder to escape at full speed, they would be able to shake off the group of sea beasts as long as they could reach them at full speed. However, it was too late now. After hearing Okudaba's order, everyone on the battleship became more and more chaotic. These continent disciples did not know what to do. Fortunately, the original crew members were well trained. After a moment of confusion, they all went into battle positions. All kinds of defensive and offensive arrays were activated in an instant. Layers of colorful lights stacked on top of each other. It was a spectacular scene. Boom! The ancient battleship suddenly shook. This was the first wave of sea beast attack. No one knew why these sea beasts would do such a suicidal action. In the face of such a huge ship like the ancient battleship, even the nascent soul stage sea beasts could not pose any threat to it. Even those powerful, profound, ascending stage sea beasts could only wear down the battleship's defensive array. They could not even attack the battleship itself, let alone cause any damage. The real threat was the few mountain opening stage sea beasts that were mixed in a huge group of sea beasts. Once they started to attack with full force, especially after their weakness was tested, it was hard to say how long the battleship's defensive array could last. Okudaba quickly retreated back to the command room. Although he was shocked, he still appeared calm at this time. All kinds of orders were issued to every crew member in an orderly manner. His calmness greatly influenced everyone. They gradually got rid of their panic and their morale soared. Lin, Yi, and Hoyuti had also sneaked into the command room. Seeing Okuda Ba's performance, they could not help but secretly nod. A person who could sit in the position of the captain could not be useless. Okuda Ba also noticed Lin, Yi, and Hoyuti. He frowned and was about to chase them away. However, when he thought of his warning just now, he immediately swallowed his words. Captain, the first wave of sea beast attack has ended. There are about 40 to 50 nascent soul stage sea beasts. The defensive array is undamaged. A familiar voice sounded in the transmission array. Lenny could tell that it was the lazy first mate from before. It seemed that he had gone to take command. Chapter 4779. Roger. Everyone responded in unison. The view of the command room was not as good as the observation deck, but it was already the second best place in the entire warship. Moreover, the sea beasts were already very close. At this time, there was no need to look from afar. Standing in the command room, one could clearly see the sea beasts in front of them. After the first wave of cannon fodder test ended, the sea beasts finally began to move. This time, there were hundreds of sea beasts, and nearly half of them were profound ascending stage sea beasts. Each of them had a suicidal attack, and they desperately rushed towards the ancient warship. This situation made Lin Yi feel a little strange. At the nascent soul stage and profound ascending stage, sea beast's intelligence was already very high. It was not strange that the weak were prey to the strong, but they actually launched a suicidal attack. This was too unbelievable. Kid, today's situation is not normal. I feel that a big guy is targeting you. At this time, the ghost's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Big guy? How big is it? Lin Yi quickly asked. His first thought was that the giant electric eel and the 5 poison dragon were super existences. If the opponent was really a terrifying sea beast that was above the sea-splitting stage, then today's situation would be really dangerous. Even the ancient warship might not be able to protect them. It's not as big as you think, but it's not small either. If the command is good, the chances of winning are 50 to 50. The ghost laughed with interest. Lin Yi couldn't help but look at Okuda Ba. He hoped that this guy could withstand it. Otherwise, if the ancient warship was really broken or even sunk, then it would be all over. Boom! The warship suddenly shook again. Everyone's face changed, including Okuda Ba. The first impact just now was only a slight shake, but the feeling this time was obviously different. Not only was the impact force far more than 100 times, but it seemed that the sea beasts had also found a flaw. There was only one wave of probing attacks before, but this time the impact was continuous, and it was getting more and more intense. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Something's wrong. These bastards have someone commanding them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to find the connecting points so easily. Damn bastards. Okuda Ba's face turned ashen. With the level of the ancient battleship's defensive formation, it was enough to easily block the life-risking attacks of the mountain opening stage sea beasts. However, it wasn't truly flawless, because with the enormous tonnage of the battleship, it was impossible for any single defensive formation to completely cover it. The only way was to stack multiple defensive formations on top of each other to achieve the effect of complete coverage. However, in this way, the defensive strength of the entire battleship would inevitably be uneven. Among them, the defensive strength of the connection point was the weakest. Although it could still block the all-out attacks of the mountain opening stage sea beasts, a flaw was ultimately a flaw. If the sea beasts were allowed to continue attacking like this, there was a possibility that the battleship would be overturned. This discovery really made everyone shudder with fear. Such a huge group of sea beasts was already very frightening. If there was a mastermind behind the scenes who could see through the connection point with a single glance, just the thought of it was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Prepare the attack formation. Okuda Ba suddenly ordered in a deep voice. Everyone was shocked, but their spirits were lifted. They excitedly rubbed their palms together and got into position. The amount of spiritual chi needed to activate the attack formation far exceeded that of all the defensive formations combined. Furthermore, the huge commotion it created could attract powerful sea beasts from all directions. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be activated easily unless it was a matter of life and death. Although it wasn't a matter of life and death yet, if they couldn't quickly stop the attack of the sea beasts, the defensive formation would be destroyed sooner or later. Instead of sitting on the ground and waiting for death, it was better to put everything on the line. This guy was really decisive. He looked at Okudaba in surprise. He then turned his gaze to the sea in front of him. At this time, all kinds of attack formations were being prepared. The entire battleship was like an unparalleled ancient beast, emitting a terrifying pressure that could destroy heaven and earth. As if they were frightened by the pressure of the attack formation, some of the nascent soul stage sea beasts at the front line suddenly stopped attacking. It seemed like they had the intention to retreat. They all desperately retreated, as if their fear of death was no less than that of humans. However, before everyone could let out a cry of joy, an extremely cruel scene unfolded in front of them. These nascent soul stage sea beasts that were scared off were instantly torn into pieces by the sea beasts behind them. Not a single one of them was spared. The entire sea was filled with the smell of blood that soared to the heavens. Even the night sky was dyed red. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Because of this cruel and inexplicable smell of blood, the sea beasts became crazier and more hysterical. Not only did they not have the slightest intention of retreating, they became even more ferocious. Even the few mountain opening stage sea beasts mixed in with the sea beasts also joined in the attack. Just now was only the second wave of attack. With the well-trained team under Okudaba, they could at least calmly deal with it. However, now it suddenly became a fight to the death. The whole situation suddenly went out of control. Attack. Target the mystical ascending stage sea beasts. All teams attack freely. Okudaba immediately ordered. The nascent soul stage sea beasts could not affect the defense formation at all. The opponent's main force was the mystical ascending stage sea beasts. As long as they could be killed, their chances of winning would be greatly increased. Roger. Listening to the unified reply in the sound transmission formation, he only saw a dazzling scene in front of him. Dozens of light beams that were visible to the naked eye instantly disappeared into the sea beasts. It seemed to be silent, but the next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes wide, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. Wherever the light beam passed, all the sea beasts instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist. The dignified, mystical ascending stage sea beasts did not even have the slightest strength to resist. They did not even have the time to dodge. As for the surrounding nascent soul stage sea beasts, they could not even be counted as cannon fodder. Looking at the hellish sea of blood in front of him, looking at the huge group of sea beasts roaring in the blood sea, he could not help but take a deep breath. His heart was filled with incomparable shock. This was the invincible warship that galloped in the endless sea. In just one wave of attack, half of the mainstay mystical ascending stage sea beasts were killed. When this invincible warship showed its ferocious claws, even the endless sea was no longer so daunting. Just like now, people here were cheering. It had become a crazy playground. Chapter 4780. Morale was greatly boosted, and all the offensive arrays were quickly preparing for the second wave of attack. However, just as they were about to launch another massacre without any suspense, the mountain opening stage existences that had been hiding among the sea beasts suddenly broke out of the water and revealed their true faces to everyone. Everyone instantly cried out in surprise. At this moment, there were a total of 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts that had suddenly appeared. Deep Sea Mad Shark, Netherworld Ghost Mother, Hooking Soul Fish, Thousand-Legged Tyrant Crab, and Humpback Mountain Whale. Every one of them was a famous overlord of the sea. Encountering any one of them would be a disaster for human cultivators. Ordinary treasured ships couldn't withstand their attacks. Fortunately, this was an ancient warship, but even an ultimate weapon like the ancient warship could not help but feel pressured when facing 5 overlords of the sea. Everyone, including Okudaba, felt a little breathless. Don't worry about them. Kill the mysterious ascending stage first. Kill them all. Okudaba suddenly reacted and yelled at the sound transmission array. Only by killing all the profound ascending stage sea monsters could they slowly deal with the 5 overlords of the sea. Otherwise, once they got into a heated battle, those profound ascending stage sea monsters would definitely destroy the defense array bit by bit and become the last straw that broke the camel's back. This was the most correct response. But unfortunately, before Okudaba could finish his sentence, a giant figure the size of a mountain had already slammed into the warship. With a loud bang, the ancient warship was actually knocked to the side by a few inches. Such a force was simply unimaginable. Humpback whale. Okudaba gritted his teeth and said the name of this giant monster. This was the largest existence in the sea. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that every humpback whale could move mountains and overturn seas with just a casual move, because they themselves were moving mountains. Just the size of the humpback whale had brought unparalleled psychological pressure to everyone. But this was not the worst part. The worst part was the urgent report that came from the sound transmission array. Captain, this monster blocked the attack. We can't lock on to the profound ascending stage sea monsters. He's just a meat shield. When Lenny heard this, he immediately felt that things were not looking good. They had just gained a slight advantage. As a result, the other side immediately blocked the humpback whale with its thick skin and flesh. It was obvious that this mountain opening stage sea beast was just a chess piece of the opponent. At this moment, everyone was looking at Okuda Dam. At this time, he had to make a decision quickly without any hesitation. His next order would directly affect everyone's life and death. With the humpback whale's thick hide, there was no need to fear it at all. Even if dozens of holes were blasted into it, that would only be scratching an itch. If they didn't fight back, they would immediately fall into a passive position. They could only take a beating and not fight back. No matter how strong the defensive formation was, it wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Stop the attack. Okudaba ordered. Captain, should we activate the 10,000-mile formation? The first mate's voice sounded from the sound transmission array. Everyone's eyes flashed, and they nodded in unison. What's the 10,000-mile formation? Lin, he whispered to Hoyuti. The 10,000-mile formation refers to 10,000 miles a day. It can increase the speed of the battleship to the maximum in the shortest time possible. This is the final trump card for escape. The price is that it will consume all of the ship's stored spiritual energy. At this time, the person who answered Lin, he wasn't Hoyuti, but Okudaba. Lin, he couldn't help but look at him in surprise. This guy was clearly trying to trick him, but he still had the mood to answer his question. It was really strange. After saying this, Okudaba didn't look at Lin anymore. Instead, he frowned and fell in a deep thought. The veins on his forehead bulged, and cold sweat flowed. It was obvious that this was a difficult choice. The others didn't dare to breathe too loudly. The command room and all the other battle positions that were connected to the sound transmission array were extremely tense. Just as Okudaba had said, the 10,000-mile formation was the last trump card for escape. The 10,000-mile array was his final trump card for escaping. Once it was activated, there would be no more spiritual chi stored. Whether or not he could escape safely would depend on the will of the heavens. They don't have good intentions. If we don't fight, we'll be courting death. We can't escape. Lin, he suddenly said. He knew that, with his status, no one would listen to him. If it was under other circumstances, he might not be willing to say this. Unfortunately, everyone was in the same boat. If the ship was destroyed, he, Ning Shuefei, and the others would be implicated. He had to think of a way to dispel this stupid idea. As expected, the surrounding people looked at Lin E with more disgust. This kid clearly didn't know anything, but he jumped out at such a critical time to disturb people's morale. They were facing 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, and they even had the humpback whale as a meat shield. If they didn't escape now, were they going to wait for death here? Why? Unexpectedly, Okuda didn't fly into a rage. Instead, he turned to look at Lin Yi with a serious expression. He actually planned to seriously consider his opinion. Lin Yi was an outsider, but with the warning he'd given earlier, even if Okuda felt a little embarrassed, he'd acknowledged Lin Yi's strength in his heart. This wasn't the time for personal grudges, and they had to work together. If it's just these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, we should be able to escape, even if it's a little troublesome. But what if the big guy we're facing isn't them? Lin Yi slowly glanced at everyone. Everyone was shocked. They immediately looked at each other in panic. This kid really didn't stop until he shocked them. The 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts in front of them were already giving them a lot of pressure. Could it be that there was something even more ferocious behind them? You noticed it too? Okuda Ba's rhetorical question made everyone even more shocked. It meant that even an experienced captain like him felt that there was another ferocious god behind them. Lin Yi couldn't help but look up to this guy. He only found out about it because of the ghost's reminder. He didn't expect this guy, whom he thought was a good-for-nothing captain, to be able to sense it too. As expected, no one who could sit in such a position was simple. I admit that you're not simple, but don't look down on me too much. Okuda Ba was very dissatisfied with Lin Yi's surprised look. He coldly snorted. I've been on the sea for more than 300 years, and I've controlled this ship for 75 years. Even if I haven't seen 100% of the battles on the sea, I've at least seen 80% of them. Although the scale of the sea beasts this time is larger than usual, if there's no one behind them, just these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts dare to challenge this ship? I'll dip my eyeballs out and step on them. Chapter 4781. No matter what, they couldn't afford to panic. Otherwise, if they didn't have a unified opinion, it would be a fatal flaw. What you two mean is, even if we can get rid of these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, we can't get rid of the guy behind them. The first mate gasped. Everyone turned to look at Lin Yi and Okuda Ba. This was the question they wanted to know the most. I haven't seen the 10,000-mile formation before, so I can't comment. Lin Yi shook his head and analyzed. But since they dare to target our warship, they must be confident. After all, sea beasts at this level are not idiots. I don't know. My intuition tells me there's a 30 to 70 chance. Okuda Ba pinched his eyebrows and added, 30 for us, 70 for them. Everyone immediately fell silent. What he meant was that even if they used the 10,000-mile array, they would only have a 30% chance of successfully escaping. As for the remaining 70%, if they were caught, the result would be obvious. Without spiritual chi, there would be no array. Without the protection of the array, an ancient battleship would be nothing more than a pile of scrap metal. Not even a random nascent soul stage sea beast would be able to stop it. Since that's the case, there's no need to worry. There's only a 30% chance for everyone to gamble with their lives. Is everyone willing to gamble? Even if you stay and fight, your chances of survival are higher than this. Lin Yi said calmly. This sentence completely dispelled everyone's thoughts of escaping. Since running was more dangerous than not running, then why the hell would they run? These crew members were all experienced soldiers. Once they were forced into a desperate situation, their morale and ability were far beyond that of ordinary people. Just like at this moment, each and every one of them looked like they had been injected with chicken blood. They couldn't wait to find the sea beasts outside and fight them to death. None of them mentioned the 10,000-mile formation again. Okay, since they want to play, then let's play with these ugly monsters. Okuda Ba suddenly roared and ordered without hesitation, listen to my command. Activate the Starfall formation. Roger. All the crew members responded with a loud rumble. Even Lin Yi was startled by this sudden surge of adrenaline. He couldn't help but tug at Yuti's sleeve and whispered, What's the Starfall formation? This. I don't know either. Yuti shook her head. This should be the core secret of the battleship, just like the 10,000-mile array. She was not a member of the battleship, just a temporary passenger. How could she possibly know such a thing? This is the ship's most powerful offensive formation. Just like the 10,000-mile formation, it's a trump card that requires all of the ship's spiritual energy reserves to be exhausted. However, the 10,000-mile formation is used for escaping, while the Starfall formation is used for attacking. Okudaba took the time to explain. Then he looked up at the starry sky and said in a joyful tone, "Luckily, the weather tonight is good, giving us an additional 20% chance of winning." Lenny didn't understand what he was talking about, but he could roughly guess that this Starfall formation had something to do with the weather. If he understood it literally, could it be that they wanted to make use of the stars in the sky? Okudaba didn't have the time to explain any further. He immediately ordered, "All teams, get into position. We only have 6 hours. After 6 hours, our spiritual energy will be depleted and we won't be able to do anything. Therefore, before dawn, we must kill all of these scum. After dawn, I will toast to each and every one of you." Yes. The crew members' voices were filled with a murderous aura, as if they were soldiers going out to battle. They would either return victorious or die on the battlefield. As they spoke, with the ancient battleship as the center, a monstrous wave of air that had never been seen before came crashing down. Without any warning, it created a huge wave that was tens of feet tall. The weaker original infant stage sea beasts were instantly blown away by the wave of air. Once they got serious, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to be cannon fodder. He looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but he felt as if the stars in the sky had suddenly become much brighter. Before, there were only stars in the sky, but now they were as bright as lanterns, clearly visible. At the same time, what made Lin even more speechless was the table in front of Okudaba. Originally, there was nothing on it, but now there was a dreamlike astrolabe. If one looked closely, they would realize that this astrolabe was 100% compatible with the stars in the sky. Let's begin. Aren't they using the humpback whale as a meat shield? Then let's destroy this meat shield and treat it as a greeting. Okudaba smiled sinisterly and ordered, "Lock onto the humpback whale, Starfall array release." As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his finger lightly on the astrolabe. When he touched the star, it suddenly shone brightly. Before Lin could take a closer look, he heard a deafening explosion outside. An incomparably huge pillar of light descended from the sky. The night that was shrouded in darkness instantly became as bright as day. Everything in front of him was blinding white light. In the blink of an eye, the shocking white light quickly dissipated. He looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The humpback whale that was like a mountain had actually been blasted into pieces by this white light. In the sea, all that could be seen with the naked eye was a small mountain of minced meat. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. A powerful sea overlord that was as powerful as the mountain opening stage was just gone in an instant. This was the ultimate killer move of the ancient warship, Starfall Array. Okudaba and the crew members were indifferent to this shocking scene, but the sea beasts outside were completely shocked. Not only the profound ascending stage sea beasts were trembling, even the deep-sea mad shark, nether mother, soulhook fish, and thousand-footed king crab, the 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts, unconsciously retreated a few miles. If they were alone, they might have retreated after witnessing the shocking scene of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The humpback whale had the toughest skin and flesh among them. If even the humpback whale suffered such a fate, the 4 of them would only end up worse if they were hit by the white light. However, after they only retreated a few miles, they suddenly stopped at the same time. Each of them let out a shrill and horrifying roar. After struggling desperately for a while, they rushed back again. Every one of them had bloodshot eyes as if they had lost their minds. Their bodies exuded a terrifying aura of madness. The other profound ascending stage sea beasts were immediately bitten into pieces when they got a little closer. It seemed that they didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Chapter 4782. Acting all mysterious. Why hasn't that ghostly thing shown up yet? Okuda frowned as he stared at the sea in front of him. He wanted to find the culprit behind all this. If he could not kill that fellow as soon as possible and was only entangled with the 4 mountain opening stage puppets, he would definitely die this time. Lin, he almost burst out laughing. He used his primordial spirit to communicate with the ghostly thing. Senior, this fellow is looking for you. Do you want to go out and greet him? The ghostly thing was speechless. It choked for a long time before saying, I'm afraid I'll scare him to death if I go out. I'll leave this to you. The thing you've encountered this time is not simple. Speaking of which, it's related to me. Related to you? Is it a spirit beast? Lin, he was shocked. That's not it. It's a real sea beast. Who told you that I can't be related to sea beasts? The ghostly thing pouted. Your family is really well connected. You even have relatives with sea beasts. I'm impressed. Lin, he shook his head speechlessly. Then he said, What should I do now? Should I bring you to meet your relative? If you want to die, go ahead. I won't stop you. The ghost thing cackled. Putting aside the fact that the other party was a sea beast that had nothing to do with it, given its current state, even if it was a spirit beast, it wouldn't dare to casually recognize it as a relative. Who knew? It might end up becoming the other party's nourishment. What should we do? Can this starfall formation defeat your relative? Linny asked. Its power is passable. However, you have to be the one commanding it to have a chance. Otherwise, I guarantee that they won't even be able to touch a hair. Once 6 hours are up, you'll all be waiting to die, the ghostly thing said disdainfully. Me commanding it. Lin, he was stunned. He looked at Okuda, who was running around in circles, and shook his head. I'm not their captain. Why would they leave such a deadly task to an outsider like me? How is that possible? Unless they've lost their minds. Before this, Okuda didn't like him and was waiting for him to make a mistake. Although his attitude had changed, it was impossible for him to hand over his command. If Lin dared to say such a thing, he would be thrown out to feed the sea beasts. Jia, I didn't ask you to ask for command right now. Wait until they've suffered and are at their wits' end. Then you can ask for it. The ghostly thing laughed. All right then. Linny nodded and looked at Okuda's next actions. At this moment, this guy seemed to have made his decision. Since it doesn't want to come out, then this captain will beat it out. Listen to my orders. His target was 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts. Starfall formation, release. As soon as Okuda's voice fell, his 4 fingers gently stroked the light shadow astrolabe in front of him, and the 4 stars that were stroked once again shone brightly. Boom! 4 huge beams of light descended from the sky again, instantly blasting towards the 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts. The white light shone brightly, and huge waves soared into the sky. The momentum was so great that it shook the ancient battleship. Once again, Lin felt a super shock that he had never felt before. As the light faded, Okuda and the others stared at the sea in front of them nervously. However, this time, the result of the battle made all of them feel a chill in their hearts. The 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts didn't follow in the footsteps of the humpback whale, as they had expected. Other than the 1,000-legged king crab, which was not much faster than the humpback whale, being blasted into pieces, the other 3 were all safe and sound. Regardless of whether it was the deep-sea mad shark, the nether ghost mother, or the soul-hooking strange fish, their speed in the sea was ghostly. The humpback whale and the 1,000-legged king crab couldn't avoid the bombardment of the starfall formation, but they could. Looking at the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts flashing back and forth on the sea, Okuda's face turned pale. The power of the starfall array was undeniable. However, there was a flaw, and that was that it needed time to accumulate power. Even if this time was compressed to an extremely short amount of time. It was so short that most of the sea beasts wouldn't be able to react in time. However, a flaw was still a flaw, and as long as it existed, it would be exploited one day. How is this possible? No matter how fast the mountain opening stage sea beasts are, they can't dodge it. This has never happened before. Okudaba shook his head in disbelief. In the past, the Starfall formation had never failed against the mountain opening stage sea beasts, but this time it had failed 3 times in a row. It was simply too strange. Everyone else was also in disbelief. Only Lin, he secretly shook his head. In the past, the Starfall formation didn't fail because the mountain opening stage sea beasts didn't have a stronger being controlling them. This time, the situation was different. The 3 of them were able to dodge the attack because the being behind them had controlled them in advance to increase their speed. This guy can't do it. In his hands, the Starfall formation can't even unleash 10% of its power. What an idiot. The ghostly thing suddenly said disdainfully. Huh, the Starfall formation isn't its strongest power? Lin, he was instantly shocked. Could it be stronger than this? Could it be 10 times more powerful than the previous one? It's the strongest power, but it's not the strongest power. The ghostly thing said mysteriously. Senior, can you speak in a human language? Lin, he was speechless. In terms of the power of the light beam, this is of course the strongest. If it's stronger than this, then the sea beasts won't be able to survive. The ghostly thing laughed and said, it's a pity that such a powerful thing fell into the hands of an idiot. No matter how powerful it is, it's useless if you can't hit your target. If it was controlled by an expert, even I would be afraid of this Starfall formation when I was at my peak. Unfortunately, it's controlled by an idiot. He can't even handle a few mountain opening stage sea beasts. If the designer is still alive, he's probably crying in the toilet. Why is that? Its charging time is indeed a very obvious flaw. As long as the opponent is strong enough and fast enough, it shouldn't be too difficult to notice it and avoid it in time, right? Lenny couldn't help but feel strange. Flaw. Kid, listen carefully. In ancient times, the Starfall formation was known as the strongest formation with no flaws. It's just that no one knows how to use it now, so it's like a pearl covered in dust. The ghostly thing sighed. The strongest formation with no flaws? Why do you say that? Lin, he couldn't help but grin. There was clearly a charging time. So how did it become the strongest formation with no flaws? Kid, look at its astrolabe. Doesn't it look like a chessboard? The ghostly thing didn't answer. Lin, he heard it and looked at it carefully. He hadn't thought about it before, but now that the ghostly thing reminded him, he suddenly felt that it really was a chessboard. An extremely complicated chessboard. Chapter 4783. This was the equivalent of using chess skills to make up for the lack of time, and even made the Starfall matrix even more unpredictable. Lin, he nodded thoughtfully. So you're saying that the Starfall matrix can only be used to its full potential by a true chess master? That's right. It said that the Starfall formation was invincible in the hands of its designer. Even the strongest person back then had to retreat. That's why it's known as the strongest killing formation. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been installed on a battleship and become the final trump card of an ultimate weapon, the ghostly thing said. While the 2 of them were communicating, Okudaba had suffered once again. He still hadn't given up on the idea of killing the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, the result was the same as before. He didn't even manage to kill a single hair. This result caused everyone's morale to drop to a freezing point. They knew that these 3 were just cannon fodder puppets, but after using all their skills, they realized that they couldn't even kill the opponent's cannon fodder puppets. How were they supposed to continue? Okudaba's face was ashen. It seemed like he had suffered a heavy blow. Even he, the captain, was in such a state, let alone the others. A feeling of despair spread from the command room to every cabin. What was even worse was that everyone had begun to blame each other. If they had activated the 10,000-mile array and escaped, they would have had at least a 30% chance of survival. But now, they didn't even have a 10% chance. Why don't you let me try? Lin, he suddenly stood up. Everyone was shocked. Okudaba frowned and looked at him. He snorted and said, "Do you know what this is? A layman wants to try the Starfall formation? I'm indeed a layman, but after seeing your performance just now, I don't think it's any worse than you," Lenny said calmly. "What did you say?" Okudaba was already in a bad mood, and now he was enraged. His opinion of Lin Yi was completely reversed. He had some ability, but this kid was too much of a braggart. I said, since I can't escape death, why don't you let me try? Maybe there's a chance? Lin Yi looked straight at Okudaba. Okudaba hesitated. He didn't believe that Lin Yi could control the Starfall formation. However, when he thought about how Lin Yi could discover the sea beast in advance and tell that there was a mastermind behind it, Okudaba couldn't help but feel lucky. What if this guy could really do it? Everyone else looked at Okudadam. Since things had already come to this, there was no point in complaining anymore. They had no other choice but to make a desperate attempt. Before Okuda could say anything, Lin Yi walked towards the astrolabe. Okuda moved aside subconsciously, and before he could react, Lin Yi's hand was already in the astrolabe. "Captain, what did you say?" The voices of the first mate and the other crew members rang out from the sound transmission array. Okudaba looked at Lin Yi and gritted his teeth. Listen to him. As soon as he said that, a beam of starfall of the Starfall formation landed on the sea in front of them. Okudaba and the others who had just decided to believe in Lin Yi were stunned. What was going on? The 3-mountain opening stage sea beasts were a few miles away, and the area covered by the light beam was empty. There was nothing at all, not even a profound ascending stage sea beast. What the hell was this guy doing? Lin Yi didn't wait for them to ask anything as he shot down 3 more pillars of light, but there was still nothing. Okuda couldn't take it anymore and roared, "Get out of the way if you don't know how to do it. Stop being a hindrance. If you don't understand, then don't talk nonsense. If you want to live, then watch carefully." Lin Yi didn't move. Okudaba's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. His opponent's terrifying aura made his heart skip a beat. He felt as if he had encountered a super master who was far above him. However, when he looked again, he found that there was no difference from before. He was clearly just a mid-nascent soul brat. Was it because he was under too much pressure? Okudaba shook his head. At this moment, Lin Yi used another 3 beams of starfall of the Starfall formation. The result was the same as before. Everyone was about to go crazy. Every single starfall light pillar consumed a large amount of spiritual energy, and in the blink of an eye, this brat had created a total of 7 light pillars. At this rate, they wouldn't even be able to last for 6 hours. Their reserves of spiritual energy would definitely be exhausted in advance. Not only did everyone look at each other speechlessly, even the 3-mountain opening stage sea beasts outside were baffled. After waiting for a while and seeing that there was no movement, they each launched a frenzied attack at the ancient warship. Because the Starfall spell had already absorbed a large amount of spiritual chi, the strength of the defensive spell was far less than before. In addition, the crazy attacks of the 3-mountain opening stage sea beasts were no small matter. The battleship was actually shaking back and forth under the attacks. The defensive spell was about to be completely destroyed, and the situation was in danger. Including Okudaba, everyone's faces turned pale. They couldn't care less about telling Lin Yi to give way. They could only shout, "Release the Starfall formation. If you don't release it, we'll die." Unexpectedly, Lin Yi turned to look at them. He smiled calmly and said, "The master hasn't shown himself yet. What's the rush?" Okudaba and the others were furious. How could this kid still be in a mood to act cool at a time like this? Did he think this was a joke? At this moment, the warship shook violently. It tilted so much that it almost capsized. Fortunately, the pilot reacted fast enough and adjusted the direction in time. Only then did they barely escape the disaster. Everyone was stunned. Although the attacks of the 3-mountain opening stage sea beasts were terrifying, it wasn't enough to tilt the warship to such an extent before the defense was destroyed. Could it be at this moment someone suddenly shouted, "Look!" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. There was a magnificent mountain range a few miles away. Of course, it wasn't a real mountain range. It was a super sea beast that was as majestic as a humpback whale. The difference was that the humpback whale was heavy and clumsy, but this one was slender and agile. All they could see was pitch black. It was covered in dense scales. In addition to its slender body, The first impression this sea beast gave everyone was that it was a giant sea snake. However, when it floated up and revealed more of its ferocious body, this thought was immediately dispelled. Sea King Dragon. This name appeared in Lin Yi's mind subconsciously when he saw the dense sawtooth of this super sea beast and the four huge and powerful fins on both sides of it. You recognize it? The ghost was shocked. Chapter 4784. The name is very close, but it's not a Sea King Dragon. It's a sea dragon, the creature closest to the sea god in the legends. The ghostly thing explained. Sea dragon. Lin Yi only realized then. No wonder this thing said that it was related to him. They were both dragons, but one was a spirit beast and the other was a sea beast. Their blood relationship was a bit too far apart, and they basically had nothing to do with each other. Sea dragon. It's a sea dragon. We actually encountered a sea dragon. Okuda suddenly yelled in excitement as he started to gesticulate incoherently. This was the legendary god of the sea. It was practically the totem of the boundless sea. He had been sailing the seas for more than 300 years, but he had never seen it before. The others were also shocked. If there was a sea beast that they talked about the most, it would definitely be the sea dragon, because there were too many legends related to the sea dragon. They could not even talk about it for 3 days and 3 nights. They did not expect to see a living sea dragon with their own eyes today. However, before everyone could calm down from their excitement, the sea dragon with the sea god's halo on its head charged at them again. With a loud bang, the warship flipped over again. After barely stabilizing the body of the ship, the excited people felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured over their heads. The defense formation had been destroyed. Everyone, including Okuda Dam, turned pale with fright when they saw the halo of the defensive formation vanish. Only now did they react. Not only was it not their good fortune to see a legendary super sea beast like the sea dragon, but it was also their misfortune. Without the protection of the defensive formation, everyone would die here. There was no chance of survival. At that moment, in the midst of the chaos, Lin Yi suddenly gathered his true chi and shouted, "Starfall formation, release." Fortunately, the crew members did not completely lose their composure. After hearing Lin Yi's order, they subconsciously responded. In an instant, 7 starfall pillars fell from the sky, and each of them was in the same position as the 7 that had missed before. Only now did Lin Yi realize that repeatedly using the starfall light pillar at the same location would greatly shorten the charging time by more than 100 times. With this kind of speed, even stronger existences would not be able to react, let alone those in the mountain opening stage. However, the opponent was still a sea dragon with the title of sea god. Its instantaneous reaction speed still caused Lin Yi to break out in a cold sweat. It had actually managed to dodge 6 of the starfall light pillars. In the end, it had no choice but to take the last one. If not for the last one, everything would have been for naught. Then, the fate that awaited everyone would have been a tragic death. Fortunately, the chess piece had not missed its target. This was the work of the ghostly creature. He had already calculated all of the sea dragon's escape routes when he placed his chess pieces in these 7 spots. One of the 7 starfall pillars would definitely be hit. The legendary existence closest to the sea god had still been tricked by this distant relative of his. Roar! There was a deafening roar. After the sea dragon was hit by the starfall light pillar, it was not blasted into pieces like the humpback whale. Instead, it only had a large hole in its body. It was not a light injury. After suffering such a huge loss, the sea dragon did not run away. Instead, it became even more ferocious and wanted to attack the warship again. It only needed one strike to kill everyone here. Unfortunately, Lin Yi was not going to give it the chance. Starfall formation, release again. Another 7 starfall light pillars were fired. This time, the sea dragon had another large hole in its body. This time, it did not dare to act rashly. It let out a shrill roar and chose to turn and flee. However, Lin Yi had no intention of letting it go. He immediately launched another series of starfall light pillars in hot pursuit. The world fell silent. It's dead. Okuda swallowed his saliva with difficulty as he looked ahead. It was a pity that the sea in front of him had already been dyed with murky blood. He could not see anything under the sea. After the sea dragon was hit by the last starfall light pillar, it did not surface again. Perhaps it had already been blasted into pieces. As for the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts, they had already been blasted into smithereens by the previous round of bombardment. Not even their bones were left. What do you think? Lenny looked at him noncommittally. He turned around and walked to Hoyuti's side. He let out a long breath and said, "It's fine now. Let's go back." After hearing what Lin Yi said, the others finally burst into an earth-shattering cheer. Anyone who had been in front of the gates of hell for such a long time would be out of breath. Their heartstrings were almost broken. Now that they had finally recovered, it was a joyous occasion to have a new lease on life. Seeing Lin Yi and Hoyuti leave, Okuda could not help but have a complicated expression. He wanted to say something, but he did not know what to say. He could only stand there in a daze. "Senior Ghost, is that sea dragon really dead?" Lin Yi could not help but ask in his mind as he and Hoyuti returned to the living quarters of the East Continent's disciples. Not only was Okuda puzzled by this question, but he himself was also uncertain. "I already said that it was my distant relative. How could I kill it?" The ghost laughed. Even he felt guilty for saying this. He knew that it was a distant relative, yet he still schemed against it. He could only add, "It was only seriously injured and escaped." Huh. Want to make a comeback? Lenny was shocked. The sky was about to brighten, and the ancient battleship that had exhausted its spiritual energy was completely defenseless. It could not even withstand a casual attack from it. That won't be the case. It's not that easy to recover from its injuries. After suffering such a huge loss, it won't dare to cause trouble for a short period of time. However, it's hard to say in the future, said the ghost. In the future? It has nothing to do with me in the future. I don't care what happens after I get off the ship. Lin Yi laughed nonchalantly. He then asked, "Oh yes, I was just wondering why this sea dragon would cause trouble for us. Did Okuda and the others offend it before? It doesn't seem like it. It looks like it's their first time seeing it. They don't need to cause trouble. Actually, the existence of this ancient battleship is already irreconcilable to the sea dragon." The ghost laughed. "Why do you say that?" Lin Yi asked curiously. "A ship needs its keel. Do you know what the keel of an ancient battleship is made of?" The ghost asked instead of answering. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. This time, he suddenly reacted. Could it be the sea dragon? That's right. That's the reason. If you were the sea dragon and saw a battleship flying over your head, how would you feel? Perhaps it would be even more extreme. Lin Yi laughed and shook his head. Chapter 4785. I'm fine. Lin Yi chuckled. Seeing that Ning Shuifei was safe and sound, he felt much more at ease. The reason why he had rushed back was to see Ning Shuifei, fearing that something might have gone wrong in the chaos earlier. However, after seeing Lu Ziyu, who had followed closely behind him, he knew that he had been worrying too much. Ning Shuifei and Lu Ziyu were astonished, especially when they heard about the appearance of the sea dragon. Their eyes lit up, and Lu Ziyu was no exception. It seemed that this creature, which was closest to the sea god, was indeed extraordinary. Everyone had heard of its legends. As Lin Yi and the others were talking, there was a commotion in the crowd. Ba Okuda had arrived. After looking at Lin Yi with a complicated expression, Okuda didn't immediately approach him. Instead, he faced the crowd and said, "Everyone, because of the crisis just now, our battleship has consumed all of its reserve spiritual chi, so we can't continue sailing for the time being. We can only wait for the spiritual chi to be replenished. During this time, you must not act on your own. Without the startled beast array, there is no defensive array. I believe I don't need to explain the dangers involved." Then what should we do? Everyone's faces turned pale with fright. They had been staying in the relatively isolated living area all this time, so they didn't have a clear understanding of the situation outside. As for the Starfall Array, the 10,000-kilometer array, and the like, they had never even heard of them. They only knew that they had been attacked by a group of super sea beasts, but they had never thought that the battle would be so precarious. The ancient warship was originally a giant that galloped across the sea. In everyone's hearts, no sea beast could pose a fatal threat to them. But now, they were suddenly told that they had completely exhausted all their spiritual energy. Wouldn't they be doomed if they continued to drift on the sea? Everyone, don't worry too much. As long as we can hold on for a day and a night, the warship will be able to replenish its spiritual energy and set sail again. Although there are threats outside, so many super sea beasts have died this time. For the time being, there shouldn't be anything that dares to come close. So it's still relatively safe. There's no need to panic. Hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. As long as they persevered for a day and a night, they would be able to resume their journey. That should not be a problem. But for safety's sake, we must double our vigilance during this period. Vice Dean Liu, you and I are the strongest on this ship, so we'll have to work a bit harder, Okuda said. It's part of my duty. No problem. Liu Ziyu immediately agreed. All right, if there's nothing else, let's disperse. Okuda nodded and walked towards Lin Yi under everyone's watchful eyes. He hesitated for a moment before saying, Young hero Lin, what happened before was purely a misunderstanding. What we need the most right now is a lookout, without waiting for him to finish. Lin Yi directly waved his hand and refused. I don't want to do it. Since you guys don't listen to me, what's the use of being a lookout? Forget it. Save your energy. Hearing that, Okuda's face darkened. However, he wasn't a fool. The treasure ship incident on the North Island could be regarded as a groundless rumor, but he had seen it with his own eyes today. This Lin Yi's sailing talent was something he had never seen before in his life. Comparisons were odious, and comparisons were odious. Today, he had truly witnessed what it meant to be a super genius born for the sea. One must know that the real lookout on his ship was a veteran who was even more experienced than him. His rich experience was well known in the navigation world. Now, his status and prestige on the ship was only slightly lower than that of the captain. Even the vice captain and the chief officer couldn't compare to him. However, such an experienced senior in the navigation world hadn't been able to discover the horde of sea beasts in time. Instead, he had discovered it long ago. If he had followed Lin Yi's warning, there wouldn't have been so many problems afterward, and they wouldn't have been in such a precarious situation. That was not all. After that, Lin Yi's performance in taking over the Starfall formation during the crisis made all the crew members, including Okuda, dumbfounded and even shocked. When they were still having a headache over the 3 mountain opening stage sea beasts, he had directly targeted the mastermind behind the scenes. They hadn't even found the shadow of the sea dragon, but he had already begun to set up a plan to deal with it. Thinking of how he reprimanded Lin Yi for making trouble, Okuda couldn't help but blush. As the captain of a warship, it was really embarrassing that he couldn't even see through Lin Yi's plan, now that he thought about it. The Starfall formation was a huge fucking shame in the hands of the real captain. He couldn't even deal with a few mountain opening stage sea beasts. On the other hand, He could even deal with the sea dragon easily. The gap between them wasn't just a little bit. It was like a world of difference. At this time, the disciples of the East Continent who didn't know the inside story were still watching the show. Especially Run Zhongyuan and the others. They all had a gloating expression on their faces. He actually dared to talk to Okuda in this tone. Did he really think that everyone would spoil him in West Island? He even said that he wasn't a lookout anymore. Did he think that he could quit this kind of job just because he wanted to? What an idiot who didn't know what was good for him. Until now, Ren Zhongyuan still hadn't heard the change in Okuda's tone. He was still immersed in his dream of sending Lin Yi into the fire pit. He thought that Okuda deliberately said this in front of everyone to emphasize the importance of being a lookout so that he could punish Lin Yi later. However, What Okuda-ba said next made Rin Zhongyuan and the others' jaws drop. Young hero Lin, I was really careless about what happened before. I sincerely apologize to you for that. This time, not only was everyone dumbfounded, but Lu Ziyu and the others also looked at each other. Even Lin Yi himself couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He really didn't expect this high and mighty captain to be willing to put down his pride and take the initiative to apologize to him in front of so many people. To be honest, I also regret it now. If I had listened to young hero Lin's warning at the first instance, so many things wouldn't have happened. It's just that I felt that there was no danger at the time, and I thought that you were a newbie with insufficient experience, so I took it for granted and didn't believe you. I didn't expect things to turn out like this in the end. It really makes me feel ashamed. Okuda-ba's tone was quite sincere. Lin Yi couldn't help but think highly of this person. He was able to take things in stride and was worthy of being the captain of ship. Although he seemed like a complete bastard when he stood up for Ren Zhongyuan previously, now it seemed that this person wasn't completely useless and could be considered a top figure. Chapter 4786. No matter what, I have to thank young hero Lin on behalf of everyone on this ship for saving our lives. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be standing here safe and sound. Okuda bowed deeply to Lin Yi. Everyone's eyes widened as if they'd just seen a ghost. The captain was supposed to stand up for Rin Zhongyuan and teach Lin Yi a lesson. How did things turn out like this all of a sudden? Also, what did he mean by thanking Lin Yi for saving his life on behalf of everyone else? When the world had just happened, everyone was confused. Rin Zhongyuan looked at Okuda with his mouth agape. He couldn't help but want to jump out and ask for an explanation. However, before he could open his mouth, Uncle Okuda shot him a stern look, making him shut up. No need. We're all on the same boat. I'm just trying to protect myself. Lin Yi waved his hand. To be honest, if there were other ways to ensure the safety of Ning Shuifei and the others, with Okuda's previous actions, Lin Yi might not be willing to stand out and save the situation. Even if Lin Yi was willing, that thing might not be willing to help him out so wholeheartedly. After all, this was a sea dragon that was related to him. Who the hell would help a human fight against their own relatives, even if they were distant relatives that had nothing to do with each other? They still had a dragon in their name. Young hero Lin, you're too humble. No matter what, I have to thank you. Okuda was still very sincere. He invited, I also know that with young hero Lin's ability, it's really a waste of your talent to be a lookout. So, I'm now sincerely inviting you to join my ship in the name of the captain. With young hero Lin's sailing ability, I can't guarantee anything else, but I can promise you the position of vice captain in the future. There was an uproar. This matter was getting more and more confusing. It was fine if Okuda didn't think of ways to screw over Lin Yi, but why was he trying to rope in Lin Yi? He even put down his status as a corporal and offered the position of vice captain. Everyone was just watching the show, but Rin Zhongyuan was so shocked that his jaw was dislocated. He looked at Okuda Dam in disbelief. What was Uncle Okuda doing? Little did he know that Okuda-ba was only willing to help him deal with Lin Yi because he was giving his father face. However, after last night's battle, Lin Yi's value was far above his father's. If he didn't quickly change his attitude, it would only prove that Okuda-ba was a fool. For a person like Okuda-ba who was used to gallop on the sea, a talented sailing master was absolutely more important than anything else. What 7th-level alchemist could not compare to him at all? This was the trump card that could allow him to sit back and relax at sea. Okuda Dam's invitation. Even Lin, he couldn't help but be moved. The position of vice captain was basically on the same level as the vice dean of East Continent College. In order to win him over, the other party didn't hesitate to spend a lot of money. But as much as he was moved, Lin, he had never planned on doing something like this. Naturally, he wouldn't accept an invitation like this. He shook his head faintly. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in this. Please find someone else, Captain. Okuda-ba's expression suddenly froze. Even if the other party was the prince consort of West Island with a promising future, he was still a master in the middle stage of nascent soul after all. Offering such a high-level position as vice captain was already very sincere, but he didn't expect it to be rejected without hesitation. Sure enough, it was not so easy to invite a master. In that case, I won't force you. Okudaba had to smile bitterly. Although he was very disappointed, he also knew that people like Lin, he had to be on good terms with as many ways as possible. In this way, there might be a chance in the future. Otherwise, if he continued to offend people like this, he would only make himself an unimaginably strong enemy. With Lin Yi's amazing performance in the battle last night, he now couldn't help but start to doubt Lin Yi's background. At least one thing was for sure, this guy was not as simple as the Prince Consort of West Island or a disciple of North Island. There must be a more powerful and terrifying background behind him. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to master the Starfall formation so skillfully. After all, this kind of thing was hard to come by, whether it was in West Island or North Island. However, Okudaba didn't give up so easily. Instead, he suggested, "This time, my ship's vitality is greatly damaged. If there's no powerful person to personally control it, there may be more trouble on the way. So I have a presumptuous request, and I hope young Master Lin will consider it seriously." "Oh, just say it." Lin Yi frowned slightly. He had changed a lot about this guy now. At least he didn't hate him as much as before. If it wasn't an outrageous request, it wouldn't be a problem to agree. After all, they were still on this warship. If something went wrong, they would definitely be in trouble. "I want to invite young Master Lin to control this warship together. Don't worry, this time there won't be a mistake like before. All the crew members on this warship will carefully follow young Master Lin's every order. I wonder if young Master Lin can help me?" Okudaba paused, then added, "Of course, this needs a good reason. An honorary vice captain position should be just right. Young Master Lin, don't worry, this won't affect anything else you do. If you want to go, just go. There's no need to be entangled. You want me to control this warship together?" Lin Yi's eyes lit up when he heard that. He didn't care about the honorary vice captain position at all, but he was very interested in the opportunity to control an ancient warship of this scale. Even if one didn't have a sailor's dream of riding the sea, as long as one was a man, they would be instinctively interested in these things. Guns, cannons, carriages, horses, especially a super warship that represented the ultimate power. This was something that was destined in their bones. Lin Yi was no exception. As an assassin, Lin Yi had piloted planes and cannons in the mortal world, but he had never piloted a warship before, especially after personally controlling a super-killing formation like the Starfall Matrix. Lin Yi actually had a tendency to love it so much that he couldn't bear to part with it. Even though he had only listened to the ghost's orders and played the chess pieces, using the Starfall Matrix to fight against a super overlord of the sea like the Sea Dragon, and even beat it until it ran away in panic. The feeling was extremely satisfying, and he couldn't help but feel intoxicated. Chapter 4787. "Okay, I can promise you that, but I have a condition." Lin Yi's tone was still calm. "Young hero Lin, please say it." Okudaba quickly said, "That guy's too much of an eyesore. Let him stay in his room. Don't let me see him, it's annoying." Lin Yi pointed in the direction of Renjong Yuan. "Someone, send Renjong Yuan back to his room. He is not allowed to step out of his room until we reach East Continent." Okudaba immediately gave the order without hesitation. This kind of condition was not a loss to him at all. Even if he put Renjong Yuan in confinement, Renjong Yuan's father would not dare to fall out with him because of such a small matter. Everything would be the same, and there would be no change at all. "Uncle Okuda, don't. You're good friends with my father. How can you help an outsider?" Renjong Yuan immediately shouted in exasperation. He never would have thought that this would happen. Not only did Okudaba not help to deal with Lin Yi, but he also wanted to please Lin Yi to deal with him. What the hell was this? "Noisy, what are you waiting for?" Okudaba frowned. Immediately, the crew guards came over and dragged Renjong Yuan away. Renjong Yuan could not use his true chi now. He was a complete cripple. He could not even struggle. He could only be dragged away like a dog. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. They were so shocked that they could not close their mouths for a long time. This time, they deeply understood two old sayings. One was the wheel of fortune, and the other was the flip of a book. Okuda Ba turned a deaf ear to Rin Zhongyuan's heart-wrenching scream and turned to look at Lin Yi with a smile. Young hero Lin, is this okay? Yes. Lin Yi nodded. He had a better understanding of this guy. He was indeed capable, but he was also black-hearted and thick-skinned. He had to be careful when dealing with this kind of guy. Don't be fooled by his straightforward appearance. He could easily sell you out in the blink of an eye. Okuda Ba smiled in satisfaction. Although he did not succeed in getting Lin Yi on board this time, it was not unacceptable. It was just an honorary vice captain position. He did not even need to pay a salary to get a sailing expert. No matter how one looked at it, this deal was not a loss. Having become the honorary vice captain, Lin Yi's status on the warship instantly rose to a level where he was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. Even the original vice captain and first officer had to be polite to him, and the treatment he received was so high that even Lu Ziyu could not help but feel envious. She repeatedly sighed that people really could not be compared with each other. After an uneventful day, the warship once again set sail amidst the cheers of the crowd. Lin Yi wandered around the various important cabins when he had nothing to do. These are the things that interested him the most. In any case, he was the honorary vice captain. In order to rope him in, Okuda Ba had never stopped Lin Yi. From the captain's point of view, if Lin Yi could control the Starfall formation so well, what other secrets could there be? If they were to talk about secrets, the Starfall formation was the core secret. Lin Yi knew much more than them. As for the lookout tower, Lin Yi did not go up there again. Okuda Ba only asked him to look after it when he was free. If there was any danger ahead, he did not even need to go up to the lookout tower to know. He could easily get people to avoid it in advance. He was much more accurate and timely than the original veteran lookout. After doing this a few times, the reputation of being a genius navigator spread like wildfire. Lin Yi had inadvertently become a rising star in the world of navigation. He had become a rising star in the world of navigation. Ningxu Fa was even happier than Lin Yi about Lin Yi's extraordinary treatment. Her face was filled with pride. This was not simply a wife taking pride in her husband. She was much more interested in this ancient warship than Lin Yi. It was a good opportunity for her to openly learn from him and make preparations for the future. Huiyuti, on the other hand, was rather helpless. Because Ningxu Fa had been following him everywhere, she no longer had the chance to spend time alone with Lin Yi. As for the bold idea that she had on the lookout tower, she did not even dare to think about it. She could only bury it deep in her heart for the time being. After a whole month at sea, the warship finally entered the legendary Yellow Sea of the East Continent. Although it had only been a few years since he came to the Heavenly Island, Lin Yi could be considered to have seen a lot. Not only the North Island, but also the Middle Island, the South Island, and the West Island. However, seeing the scene in front of him this time, he could not help but be shocked. Big, very big. This was Lin Yi's first reaction when he saw the Yellow Sea of the East Continent. The North and West Islands docks were many times smaller than the one in front of him. This was a true superport that stretched as far as the eye could see. If it was only the size of the port, it would be fine. The key was that the ships parked in front of him were too spectacular. Looking from afar, more than half of them were treasure ships, and there were even a few huge warships parked among them. As for those ordinary ships, even if they were super ships with huge tonnage, they did not seem to be presentable in this place at all. They were simply like small fishing boats parked beside these giants of the sea. They would be too embarrassed to even greet people when they walked out. Treasure ships, warships, didn't they say that these things are very rare? Why are they everywhere here? Lin Yi could not help but swallow his saliva. Previously, he thought that owning a treasure ship was already very awesome. Now that he thought about it, he felt that he was too naive. He really had not seen the world. That's right. Not to mention ancient warships. Even treasure ships are very rare strategic goods. It's just that more than 80% of the treasure ships of the 5 great heavenly islands are concentrated in the East Continent. That's why they look so similar. This kind of scene can never be seen in other places, Huiyuti explained with a smile. I see. Linny nodded. He could not help but praise in his heart. The East Continent was indeed worthy of being the largest and strongest island in the Heavenly Islands. Seeing it today, it really deserved its reputation. Accompanied by a low port call, the warship finally slowly approached the shore. Ren Zhongyuan, who had been confined for a whole month, was finally released. This time, he did not dare to come and find trouble. Now, even Okuda Dam was helping Linny. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that there was nothing he could do. He glared at Lin, Yi, and the others from afar. Their faces were full of resentment and unwillingness. Renjin, he shouted on, and the others could only resentfully disembark the ship and leave in a hurry. They did not even bid farewell to Huiyuti before disappearing into the crowd. They probably did not have the face to harass Huiyuti for the time being. Lin Yi and the others were more than happy to see this. These annoying guys all had extraordinary backgrounds. They could not kill them, although they could make the other party suffer a loss by taking the initiative to approach them. They would inevitably be in a bad mood. What the eyes did not see, the heart did not grieve. Chapter 4788. But what made people speechless was that he was only attentive to Lin Yi, while Lu Ziyu, who had the highest status, was instead given the cold shoulder. They did not know whether to laugh or cry. Thank you very much, Captain Okuda. We'll meet again. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. After interacting with him for this period of time, he realized that this person was actually not too bad. Other than the fact that he would turn hostile as quickly as flipping a book, he did not have any other major problems. Although he knew that the other party was doing this purely to rope him in, having a friend who owned an ancient warship might come in handy one day. Bon voyage, and we'll meet again. Okuda laughed heartily. Those who were not familiar with him would really be fooled by this guy's image. If anyone really thought that he was honest and straightforward, they would definitely be cheated until their faces bled in the future. After disembarking, the group of East Continent disciples all came over to bid farewell to Lu Ziyu, then left in 2s and 3s, returning to their respective homes. However, Lu Ziyu, Lin Yi, and the others did not immediately set off for Morning Pride Academy, but found a nearby inn to stay temporarily. There was no other reason, then, that they had to solve a very important problem in the next few days. Which academy were they going to? Ning Shangling did not give a clear answer to this question, only saying that Ning Xuefei could choose for herself. As for Lin Yi, he would obviously go wherever Ning Xuefei went. Along the way, Lu Ziyu had specially asked Ning Xuefei this question several times. But it was a pity that this girl was busy peeking at the secrets of the ancient warship and did not seriously consider it at all. That was why it had dragged on until now. Lu Ziyu could only helplessly drag it out. Her mission was to personally send Ning Xuefei to school, and she could not just leave now. Lu Ziyu, Ning Xuefei, Huiyuti, and Lin Yi sat around a table, staring at each other. There was a huge pile of information on the table, and it included all the Huangstep academies in the East Continent. If they wanted to finish reading all the information, they would have to spend a lot of effort. If they wanted to finish reading all the information, Lin Yi roughly estimated that it would take at least 3 to 5 days. Ning Xuefei felt a headache coming on. Not to mention her, even if it was Lin Yi, he would not be able to handle it. To find the one that he liked the most among so many academies was like finding a needle in a haystack. How could it be easy? Why don't you recommend one to me? Ning Xuefei had to ask for help with tears in her eyes. Everyone looked at each other. Neither Lu Ziyu nor Huiyuti said anything. Helping Ning Xuefei choose an academy could be a big or small matter. If this was spread by someone with ulterior motives, and they were accused of interfering in the internal affairs of West Island, they would die of injustice. Even if Ning Shangling had no objections, the other academies in the East Continent would definitely be dissatisfied. If they could recruit Ning Xiufei, the princess of the West Island, into the academy, it would be a major event for any academy in the East Continent. To a certain extent, this was a special honor that only first-rate academies could enjoy. Therefore, this matter could only be decided by Ning Xiufei herself. Lu Ziyu did not want to be the subject of gossip. Helpless, Ning Xiufei could only turn a look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi did not have much scruples about this. He was the son-in-law of West Island, and he had enough say in this matter. How about going to Morningstar Academy? Lin Yi thought about it and said, this was the East Continent Academy that he knew the earliest, and both Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaodao were there. As long as Ning Xiufei became the disciple of the divine nun of Donghai, they could take care of each other after they went there. Of course, there was a selfish motive in this. Lin Yi just wanted to take the opportunity to see Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaodao. It had been 2 years since they parted at the South Continent Sea. It would be a lie to say that he did not miss the two girls. This was the perfect opportunity. Ning Xiufei did not care about this at all. She would do whatever Lin Yi said. In the end, when she was about to nod and agree, Lu Ziyu, who was at the side, suddenly interrupted her righteously. No, why? Lin Yi and Ning Xiufei could not help but be stunned. I'm Fei Fei's recommendation. Although this doesn't mean that Fei Fei has to enter our Morning Pride Academy. With this layer of relationship, she can't enter the Morningstar Academy, because that's our academy's greatest competitor. Lu Ziyu said firmly. There's such a thing? Lin Yi was instantly surprised. He knew of such an academy, but it turned out to be Morning Pride Academy's archenemy. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? That's right. Don't you realize that these two names are very similar? Lu Ziyu asked with a bitter smile. Morning Pride? Morning Star? Now that you mention it, it's only a difference of one word. Isn't this a coincidence? Lin Yi said curiously. He had not thought in this direction before, and thought it was just a coincidence. The naming of an academy is a huge matter. How can it be a coincidence? Actually, these two academies were originally one, but because of a major incident, they split up. Afterwards, they did not interact with each other, and the estrangement grew deeper and deeper, leading to the current situation. Lu Ziyu said with a sigh. So that's how it is. Lin Yi could only shake his head with a bitter smile. Chapter 4789. Lin Yi suddenly didn't know what to say. Because Lu Ziyu was the person who recommended Chen Jiao, she couldn't go to Chen Xing, and because Chen Xing didn't let go of the rigid rules, she couldn't go to Chen Jiao either. After thinking about it, he could only use one word to describe it. Fuck. Then what should we do? Ning Xiufei also had a headache. For now, you can only go to a nearby academy and stay for 1 or 2 years, then come back to our Chen Jiao. Lu Ziyu said a method that wasn't really a solution. She had personally promised Ning Shangling that she would take good care of Ning Xiufei. If they were too far away, it would be hard for her to take care of Ning Xiufei, and then she would go back on her words. Are there any good academies nearby? Ning Xiufei asked. Soaring Cloud Academy. Its strength is considered top-notch among the Huang Stage academies, and it's not far from our Chen Jiao Academy. Also, our relationship has always been good. You can enter as long as you say hello. Fei Fei, what do you think? Lu Ziyu suggested. Soaring Cloud? Isn't that the Academy of Renkaizi and the others? Ning Xiufei couldn't help but purse her lips. Ever since Wei Yudi called Kong Ming Ming a Kaizi, the word Kaizi had become a general term for those annoying people. Kong Ming Ming was Kong Kaizi, and Renjong Yuan was Ren Kaizi. Lin Yi and Hui Yudi couldn't help but frown slightly. Although it was a bit too much to look down on Soaring Cloud Academy because of Renjong Yuan and the others, it really wasn't a good impression. Especially once they went to Soaring Cloud Academy, they would definitely be pestered by Renjong Yuan and the others. Moreover, it would be their home ground, and it would be very annoying. Lu Ziyu saw their concerns and smiled as she explained, You don't have to worry about this. With your identity as the princess of the West Island, after you go there, you will definitely be the most valued disciple of Soaring Cloud Academy. No matter how brave Renjong Yuan is, he wouldn't dare to mess around. Even if he isn't convinced, his father will also stop him. I will specially announce this to the higher-ups of their academy. This. Ning Shuefei turned to look at Lin Yi hesitantly, wanting Lin Yi to make a decision for her. Since that's the case, then listen to Vice Dean Liu and go to Soaring Cloud Academy. In this way, Fei, you can always get together with Yudi. Otherwise, if you live too far away, you might not even see her once a year. That would be too lonely and boring. Lin Yi immediately nodded. This was also for the sake of making it convenient for Lu Ziyu to come over and take care of them. As for Ren Zhongyuan and the other clowns, they were a little annoying, but as long as they were given a bit of suffering and a good warning, there shouldn't be any problems. Lin Yi's standards were not so low that he would take these people seriously. Okay, I will go to the Soaring Cloud Academy. Ning Shuefei nodded her head and agreed. She would do whatever Lin Yi said. She would not worry about these things at all. All right, there's no time to lose. Let's go. Lu Ziyu glanced at Lin Yi approvingly, looking like a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law. The more she looked at him, the more pleasing she felt. Not only was this child powerful and resourceful, what was even rarer was that he was so understanding and reasonable. He was practically the best choice to be her disciple's son-in-law. It was a pity that Ning Shangling had beaten her to it. Alas, Huiyuti was also quite happy about this. In this way, not only could she get together with Ning Shuefei often, but she could also take the opportunity to spend a few more days with Lin Yi. After all, she had been to the Soaring Cloud Academy many times before, so she could be considered to be familiar with the way. The four of them immediately set off. Regardless of whether it was the Morning Pride Academy or the Soaring Cloud Academy, they were both thousands of miles away from the harbor. However, it was very convenient to rent flying spirit beasts here. It only took them 2 hours to travel this distance. After flying over the vast forest and the various large and small villages scattered in the forest, the four of them soon arrived at the square of the Soaring Cloud Academy. There were many pavilions and the atmosphere was solemn. Although Soaring Cloud Academy was only one of the many yellow rank academies, its overall scale and layout were not much worse than the 3 pavilions in the North Island and the palace in the West Island. In particular, any young disciple here was at least a master above the gold core stage, which made people secretly shocked. It was indeed true that the East Continent Academy was a place where geniuses gathered. In terms of average strength, the other Heaven Rank Islands might not be able to compare with this academy. Of course, not all the disciples here were natives of the East Continent. Many of them were elites from other islands. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a magnificent gathering of talents. Lu Ziyu led Lin Yi and the other 2 to the front hall of the academy. At this time, after receiving the report, the higher-ups of the academy had already been waiting here. However, the scene was not as magnificent as Lin Yi had imagined. With Ning Shuefei's identity as the princess of the West Island, he had thought that the higher-ups of the academy would appear together. However, there was only a gentle and elegant woman waiting for them. This was not because the higher-ups of the Soaring Cloud Academy were putting on airs, but because as a yellow rank academy in the East Continent, they were at the very least reserved. No matter what the identity of the person who came was, she was just a disciple. If they made such a grand ceremony for the first time, then these disciples with special identities would all be lawless. It would be difficult to discipline them in the future. Xingma, long time no see. Lu Ziyu smiled and walked over. At the same time, she turned her head and introduced to the others. This is the Vice Dean of the Soaring Cloud Academy, Chun Xingma. This is the Princess of the West Island, Ning Shuefei, and the son-in-law, Lin Yi. Greetings, Vice Dean Chun. Lin Yi and Ning Shuefei hurriedly greeted. Auntie Chun. Huiyuti smiled and hugged the woman's arm. Looking at their intimate behavior, they should be very familiar with each other. Hello, the dean just told me that Fei will follow me to cultivate in the future. Is that okay? Chen Xingma nodded slightly and said with a smile. As for Lin Yi, she didn't mention him. Obviously, she knew that Lin Yi was only here to send Ning Shuefei over and didn't plan to enter the academy to cultivate. Yes, Yes, Fei Fei greets master. Ning Shuifei obediently returned to the etiquette of a disciple. Even if she was only following Chan Xingma to cultivate temporarily, she was still a proper master. Okay. The corners of Chun Xingma's mouth curled up into a beautiful arc. She was originally beautiful and intellectual, and now she seemed even more gentle and pleasant, making people feel as if they were bathing in a spring breeze. Lin Yi praised in his heart. He was very satisfied with his first impression of Ning Shuifei as his new master. Although they were both vice dean of the academy, Chan Xingma's temperament was completely different from Lu Ziyu's. Lu Ziyu was straightforward and had a sense of chivalry, while Chen Xingma was gentle and elegant. They were two completely different types of people. Although this kind of temperament wasn't as strong as Lu Ziyu, with Ning Shuifei's identity, no one would dare to provoke her. It didn't matter whether she was strong or not, as long as she could take good care of her. Just from this point alone, Chun Xingma was more suitable than Lu Ziyu. After greeting each other, Chun Xingma asked people to arrange rooms for them, while she personally took them to visit the Soaring Cloud Academy. The Soaring Cloud Academy occupied a large area, and there was even a mountain behind it. Chun Xingma took them to each place and made a few comments. However, the perspective of her comments was very personal. Chapter 4790. If it was another high-level official who brought people to visit their college, of course, they would inevitably praise it, especially a powerful and resource-rich college like Soaring Cloud Academy. They would introduce it well. However, Chun Xingma didn't mention a word about this. Every time she opened her mouth, she would comment on the scenery and the atmosphere. She was really an intellectual woman. However, in addition to the scenery, Chun Xingma introduced a little bit about the various arrays in the college. Although she didn't say much, her words were accurate. It could be seen that she should have a lot of knowledge and research on arrays, which was quite to Ning Shuifei's liking. In recent years, this girl had been researching a single direction, and that was how to combine forging and array formations. In particular, how to complement Han Jingjing in the future. This was an extremely important topic. Unfortunately, she was not proficient in array formations and was only a dabbler. This time, she would be able to learn from her master. It was worth mentioning that on the way to visit the college, they also met a few familiar faces. It was Ren Zhongyuan and the others who had returned earlier. Seeing Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei suddenly appear in this place, they were obviously stunned for a moment. But perhaps because of Chun Xingma's presence, or perhaps because of the lingering fear of the previous loss, Ren Zhongyuan didn't directly bring his people to cause trouble. He just looked at Lin Yi from a distance and turned away. Brother Run, they have appeared in our academy at this time. This means that they are preparing to enroll here. This is a chance for revenge. Yi Xiaodian sneered as he looked at the backs of Lin Yi and the others. Humph! Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. How dare they come to my Soaring Cloud Academy? Do they really think that I can't do anything to them? Ren Zhongyuan snorted coldly. Back on the warship, Lin Yi's casual words had caused Okuda to lock him up for a whole month. Ren Zhongyuan was pissed off just thinking about it. He was the one with the initiative, and Okuda was supposed to be on his side. But somehow, the kid had gotten all the limelight, and even Okuda was praising him to the point where he was helping Lin Yi against him. This matter could not be tolerated. However, no matter how unwilling he was, Ren Zhongyuan couldn't come up with any solution now. He knew that this matter could only be considered in the long run. Otherwise, if he acted recklessly again, he might suffer even more. Now, he was already a cripple who couldn't use his chi. If he was beaten again, it was possible that he would be crippled for life. Brother Ren, do you have any ideas? Yi Xiaodian asked. Not yet. Don't be anxious. Wait for me to recover my strength first. Since they want to cultivate here, we'll have plenty of time to kill them. Ren Zhongyuan said with a stern expression. He had to admit that he had underestimated Lin Yi too much before. That was why he had suffered so many losses. Although he had been under house arrest in the room for the past month, Yi Xiaotian and the others had already inquired about Lin Yi's situation. They knew that this kid was far from being as simple as he looked. He was a real tough guy. If you want to beat him, you must hit the snake where it hurts. After saying this, Ren Zhongyuan immediately said goodbye to Yi Xiaotian and the others and returned to his manor. This was a top-notch mansion with birds chirping and flowers fragrant. After all, this was the residence of the chief alchemist of Shangyun Academy. His status was even higher than that of the deputy dean. Only the dean could barely suppress him. As soon as Ren Zhongyuan entered the gate, he was interrupted by a majestic reprimand. "How can you be so impulsive?" He looked in the direction of the voice. In the garden next to him, a middle-aged man was watering the flowers. He was thin and had an awe-inspiring aura, giving people a sense of oppression. This person was Ren Zhongyuan's father, Ren Tiansuo. F.A. Father. Ren Zhongyuan quickly squeezed out a respectful expression. Although he was arrogant and domineering outside, in front of his father, the chief alchemist, he usually didn't even dare to breathe. Ren Tiansuo nodded slightly and continued to carefully water the flowers and plants next to him. These were rare elixirs that he had spent a lot of money to ask someone to send. Any one of them was a priceless treasure, so he had to take care of them himself. After carefully watering all the elixirs, Ren Tiansuo turned his head to look at his son. After taking a look, he suddenly frowned. "You're poisoned?" "Yes." Ren Zhongyuan nodded with an ugly expression on his face. This was a humiliation he had never experienced before. A mere mid-stage nascent soul cultivator's chi was something he couldn't handle. If word of this got out, everyone would laugh their heads off. "Come here." Ren Tiansuo put his hand on the acupuncture point on his son's wrist. After pondering for a moment, he tried to inject chi to resolve it. However, the next moment, his face suddenly became a little ugly. He said in a deep voice, "Who did you meet, and what happened? Tell me the whole story. Don't miss a word." Ren Zhongyuan had no choice but to do as he was told, starting for the first time he met Lin Yi. He carefully recounted everything that had happened, not daring to exaggerate. He could only tell the truth without missing a word. This was the summary of his experience since he was a child. As long as he told the truth, no matter what happened, his father would stand on his side. However, if there was any concealment or lies, it would not escape his father's eyes. His ending would definitely be worse than now. Lin Yi, even a realistic person like Okuda Ba holds him in high esteem. So, this is really an amazing young man. Ren Tiansuo couldn't help but narrow his eyes. In my opinion, this person's methods are indeed strange and unfathomable. It's just that they're all crooked methods. Most likely, there's a reason for his mistake in sailing. The most hateful thing is that this brat actually dared to poison people in public. He's really sinister and cunning. Ren Zhongyuan gnashed his teeth in dissatisfaction. This is your conclusion? Ren Tiansuo looked at him coldly. My son. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped. Ren Zhongyuan suddenly felt that something was wrong, but he did think so. If he hadn't underestimated his opponent, he wouldn't have suffered a loss at the hands of Lin Yi. Was this wrong? How could I, Ren Tiansuo, give birth to such a fool like you? Ignorant and narrow-minded. Ren Tiansuo suddenly felt a little disappointed and snorted coldly. Okuda Ba has dominated the sea for 300 years. Do you think his insight is worse than yours? Also, do you still think that you've been poisoned? Was it not? Ren Zhongyuan was stunned. Chapter 4791. It's not poisonous gas? Then what is it? Ren Zhongyuan said weakly, shrinking his neck. Humph. This is just a strand of genuine qi. It's not a poisonous technique at all. It's just that the composition of the genuine qi is a bit special. Don't you feel ashamed to say that you practice both elixirs and medicine? Ren Tiansuo said angrily. Just a strand of genuine qi? That's impossible. Whose genuine qi would be so complicated? It covers all 5 basic attributes. Ren Zhongyuan still didn't believe it. That's why I said you're a frog in a well. You don't even understand that there's always someone better out there. You deserve to suffer. You're lucky you didn't die outside. Ren Tianhua stared at him, frowned, and carefully tried to resolve it for him. However, it was to no avail. Ren Tianhua shook his head and said, "That young man named Lin is really not simple. Even I can't resolve his genuine qi. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Then what should we do? Renjong Yuan immediately panicked. He thought it would be easy to resolve it with his father's means. He didn't expect it to be so tricky. If he couldn't resolve it as soon as possible, wouldn't he become a cripple who couldn't circulate his genuine qi for the rest of his life? It seems that normal means won't work. We can only refine it together with elixirs. However, you have to be mentally prepared. I guess it won't work until a month or so, Ren Tianhua said in a low voice. Only then did Ren Zhongyuan heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt incomparably sad. Even with his father's help, he still had to work hard for a month to refine a wisp of true qi. Wasn't this a little too strange? By the way, you just said that the guy named Lin he also came to our academy? Ren Tianhua suddenly asked. Yes, this guy is too much. Father, you have to help me. Ren Zhongyuan was immediately overjoyed. If he could encourage his father to personally take action, not to mention a mere Lin Yi, even if 10 people came, they wouldn't know how they died. Help? Humph. You provoked him, and he spared your life. Do you want me to help you? Ren Tianhua frowned again. With a cold snort, he warned, This kid is unfathomable. You better pay attention in the future. Don't always think of stirring up trouble. I don't have the time to clean up after you. After all, he was the chief alchemist. Ren Tianhua's foresight was far greater than Ren Zhongyuan's. Although he was dissatisfied with Lin Yi, he could only punish his own son no matter how big a mistake he made. This was a common problem for most parents. However, he was only a little dissatisfied. It was not to the point where he would personally deal with Lin Yi. Only by keeping a low profile could one live a long life. This was Ren Tianhua's philosophy of life. If it weren't for this belief, he wouldn't have been able to reach his current position step by step. He knew that once he stopped keeping a low profile, it might be the beginning of his demise. Therefore, he endured as much as he could. When Ren Zhongyuan heard this, he gritted his teeth unwillingly. However, in the face of his strict father, he did not dare to say anything. He could only silently suppress the hatred in his heart. He was not as far-sighted as his father. He had always been vengeful. These days, he had been completely blinded by hatred. It was impossible for him to stop now. The next day, Ren Zhongyuan ignored his father's order to recuperate at home and found an opportunity to sneak out. He gathered with Yi Xiaotian, Li Yuzhou, and Sun Baolu again. The four of them booked a luxury box in a restaurant inside the academy. They discussed the big plan together. Brother Ren, has the poison in your body been resolved? Yi Xiaotian and the others asked as soon as they met. Don't mention it. My old man said it would take a month to refine it. Just thinking about it makes me feel unlucky. Ren Zhongyuan curled his lips in annoyance. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Ren Tianhua took so long to deal with it. This poison was really difficult to deal with. By the way, Brother Ren, I found out something today. Lin, he doesn't seem to have any plans to enter our academy, Yi Xiaotian suddenly said. What? Then what are they doing here? Ren Zhongyuan asked curiously. I saw Ning Shuifei's name in the latest disciple list, but I didn't see Lin Yi. I guess he is just accompanying Ning Shuifei this time, and will leave soon. So if we want to find him for revenge, we have to hurry up. Otherwise, it will be difficult if we wait for this kid to run away. Yi Xiaotian pinched his chin and said, No, it wasn't easy for him to come here. We can't let this kid run away like this. Otherwise, I won't be able to calm down. You guys quickly think of a way. Ren Zhongyuan frowned and urged. The group looked at each other, speechless. Everyone here wanted to kill Lin Yi, but Lin Yi's strength was there for all to see. The incident of Lin Yi sending Scarface flying with a slap had been brought up again and again, and it was hard for them not to know about it, especially now that Ren Zhongyuan himself was a cripple. How was he supposed to fight Lin Yi? Li Yuzhou, Sun Baolu, your lives were saved by me. Now is the time for you guys to come in handy. It wasn't easy for us to come to our own territory. Can't you even think of a way to deal with Lin Yi? Both of you are useless. Why are your heads on your necks? Ren Zhongyuan raised his hand and slapped each of them. Li Yuzhou and Sun Baolu covered their red cheeks and asked Yi Xiaotian for help with grievances. Even Brother Ren can't think of a good idea. How can you blame us? Yi Xiaotian ignored them. He frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said, Brother Ren, with our strength, we probably aren't that kid's opponent in a head-on battle. But if we alarm our backer because of this, it will seem like we're making a big fuss over a minor issue. It seems that there is only one way left. What way? Ren Zhongyuan asked quickly. Misfortune flows to the east. Yi Xiaotian smiled coldly. What misfortune flows to the east? Brother, quickly tell me in detail. Ren Zhongyuan suddenly became spirited. Let's not talk about this first. When I came back yesterday, I heard something. The one with the surname Lung seems to have returned. Yi Xiaotian said. The one with the surname Lung? You mean Lung Rufeng? Didn't that guy go to the Mystic Steppe Sea region? Why did he suddenly come back? Ren Zhongyuan couldn't help but feel strange. Speaking of this person, he couldn't help but gnash his teeth a little because this person was once his and Yi Xiaotian's sworn enemy. Although his background wasn't as deep as theirs, this person's strength was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. Among the Academy's disciples of the same generation, he and Yi Xiaotian couldn't handle him at all. But 2 years ago, this person brought a female companion to the Mystic Steppe Sea region. At that time, Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian celebrated, but they didn't expect this guy to suddenly come back. Chapter 4792. The Beauty Pill was a 7th grade medicinal pill. It could be said to be a super enhanced version of the Beauty Pill. After taking it, not only could a woman maintain her youth forever, but it could also make her skin and face reborn. Even a disfigured, ugly person could transform into a fairy after taking it. It could be said to be a priceless treasure that all women in the world would scramble for. Beauty Pill. Ren Zhongyuan rolled his eyes and immediately knew why Yi Xiaotian mentioned this. He said excitedly, My father was entrusted by someone to refine a group of beauty pills a while ago. It's not difficult to get one from them. Brother, you mean you want me to use this beauty pill to win over Lung Rufeng? Wrong, on the contrary. We want to give this beauty pill to Ning Xuefei. Yi Xiaotian smiled mysteriously. Give it to Ning Xuefei? Ren Zhongyuan looked at him in confusion. Using the beauty pill to win over Lung Rufeng and use this to make Lung Rufeng cause trouble for Lin Yi. This was the logic of a normal person. What was the point of giving it to Ning Xuefei? Brother Ren, think about it. With Lung Rufen's stone-like personality, even if you give him a beauty pill, are you sure you can order him around? Yi Xiaotian asked instead of answering. This may not be true. Ren Zhongyuan couldn't help but shake his head. Lung Rufeng was not only ridiculously strong, but his personality was also very unyielding. Even if this kind of person was pinched on his weakness, there was no hope of making him obedient. His most likely reaction would be to fight to the death with you. In particular, there were many conflicts between them. Lung Rufen's disdain for the two of them was obvious on his face. It was basically impossible for him to be willing to be a fighter for them. So, a beauty pill alone is not enough to order him around. At most, it can only be used as a pretense to stir up trouble. Let's give the beauty pill to Ning Xuefei. Then, on the way, coincidentally, his woman heard it. Brother Ren, what do you think will happen next? Yi Xiaotian smiled slyly. Brilliant. His woman is seeking death because of her disfigurement. She can only watch as a beauty pill passes in front of her. If she can resist snatching it, I will write the word Ren upside down. Ren Zhongyuan excitedly slapped his thigh. That's it. As long as his woman takes action against Ning Xuefei, Lin Yi will definitely take action as well. At that time, the man surnamed Lung won't be able to stay out of it. It's said that he is infatuated with her and will do anything for his woman. Yi Xiaotian said proudly. This could be seen from the fact that Lung Rufeng was willing to accompany his woman back from the Mystic Steppe Sea region. If it was anyone else, they would only have a 1 in 10,000 chance to continue staying in the Mystic Steppe Sea region. He would never come back, even if he was beaten to death. Good plan. Good plan. Ren Zhongyuan sighed repeatedly. After thinking for a while, he added, "If they don't fight at that time, we can also expose the fact that Lin Yi has the Thunder Xian vine. The beauty pill and the Thunder Xian pill are what his woman needs the most right now. It's impossible for Lung shouting not to be tempted." The two of them spoke one after another, and a perfect plan was quickly formed. After discussing it, Ren Zhongyuan immediately went home to get the beauty pill. He wanted to see Lin Yi suffer. He didn't want to wait any longer. Taking advantage of Ren Tiansua's absence, Ren Zhongyuan took out the beauty pill with ease and came out to discuss it with Yi Xiaodian. In addition, he found a reliable younger brother to be responsible for delivering the pill. After all, Li Yuzhou and Sun Baolu were too eye-catching. Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei would definitely not believe them. This younger brother's name was Qian Rui. After listening to the instructions, he solemnly took the beauty pill from Ren Zhongyuan's hand and waved it at Li Yuzhou and Sun Baolu, who were standing at the side. He chuckled and said, "Brother Li, brother Sun, you two a good rest. This younger brother promises to do a good job on this errand. Just wait and see." Li Yuzhou and Sun Baolu were so angry that they grinned. They were both Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaoyan's younger brothers. The two of them had been suppressing Qian Rui. They didn't expect that this time they would give him a chance to turn things around. It was really fucking annoying. But even if they were unhappy, they couldn't do anything about it. They could only watch Qian Rui walk away. Once this matter was settled, Qian Rui might really be able to make a comeback. Who told them to put themselves in trouble because of the photo incident? Humming a song along the way, Qian Rui followed Ren Zhongyuan's instructions and wandered to a courtyard. This was Lung Rufin's former residence. Because the place was secluded and suitable for recuperation, he snatched it back from others after returning from the Mystic Steppe Sea area. Except for Lung Rufin and his woman, no one would come here at other times. Qian Rui poked his head out and observed for a while, but there was no movement inside. According to the intelligence, Lung Rufin went to the business district early this morning. He should be trying to find a way to get the beauty pill and the Thunder Xian pill. So now only his disfigured woman, Yang Qinxue, was left here. Speaking of Yang Qinxue, this woman used to be a highly respected cold goddess in the Soaring Cloud Academy. Both her beauty and strength were first class in the academy. Otherwise, Lung Rufin wouldn't have taken a fancy to her, let alone followed him to the Mystic Steppe Sea area for further study. After all, that kind of place couldn't be taken care of by others. One had to be strong enough. Qian Rui licked his lips and carefully walked around the courtyard wall to the backyard. He peeped inside through the thin gap in the fence. As expected, he found Yang Qinxue in the pavilion in the backyard. Although her face was disfigured, this woman still made people's imagination run wild just by looking at her back. After all, she used to be a goddess. After confirming Yang Qinxue's location, Qian Rui immediately tiptoed back to the front yard and deliberately said to himself, "Where on earth does this woman named Ning Shuifei live? The old shopkeeper is really muddle-headed. He urges me to send the beauty pill to this Miss Ning as a congratulatory gift, but he doesn't give me the specific address. How can I find her?" Alas, his voice was neither loud nor soft. After saying this, Qian Rui exerted his divine sense with all his strength. As expected, Yang Qinxue, who was sitting in the backyard lifelessly, suddenly moved. Done. Qian Rui's heart skipped a beat, and he ran without hesitation. His strength was only at the early stage of nascent soul, and even if the other party was seriously injured, she was still at the peak of nascent soul. If he moved a little slower and was intercepted on the spot, it would be a big joke. Qian Rui's speed was extremely fast. After coming out of this secluded courtyard, he went straight to the newcomer's courtyard. According to the rules, every new disciple must live here for the first year. This was a rigid rule, even with Ning Shuifei's identity. Of course, only official disciples had this qualification. Nominal disciples were not included. Chapter 4793. Every year, there would be dozens of people in the welcome pavilion, but the newcomer courtyard would usually only have 4 or 5 people. Rarely would there be more than 10 people. After all, this was the Eastern Continent Academy that only accepted genius disciples. Every year, there were only a few newcomers. At this time, Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei were chatting in the courtyard. There was no one else around. Lu Ziyu and Hui Yudi had gone back to the Morning Pride Academy in the morning. It would probably be a few days before they could meet again. Chun Xingma had also gone out, so there were only the 2 of them left. Didn't they say that the new disciples live here? Why haven't I seen a single new disciple since yesterday? Ning Shuifei asked as she leaned on the stone table. It's probably not time yet. The major sects usually recruit disciples in spring or autumn. I think it's the same for the East Continent academies. Lin Yi couldn't help but think of the Morning Star Academy. Maybe the Soaring Cloud Academy was doing the same and was recruiting genius disciples in all the major heaven islands. It's so boring for me to be alone. Sister Hui can only come to see me every few days. You have to stay with me for a while. Ning Shuifei pouted. The wheel of fortune had turned, and now it was just the 2 of them again. It didn't feel bad at all. Linny nodded. To be honest, he was worried about leaving Ning Shuifei alone. He could only stay and observe for a while to make sure there were no problems here. Only then could he leave with peace of mind. Lin Yi, you're the best. Ning Shuifei giggled. Her eyes turned into crescents as she intimately hugged Lin Yi's arm. A few months ago, she never thought that she would really be together with Lin Yi. But now the 2 of them had already decided on a status. It was really hard to predict, but she liked it. A soft and bouncy feeling came from his arm. Smelling the girl's pure body fragrance, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little restless. Although this lass always gave people the feeling that she was a child who couldn't grow up, not to mention that her capital wasn't small, she was also a little demon who could tempt people to death. The 2 of them were flirting. He suddenly caught a glimpse of a person poking his head out of the door. After hesitating for a moment, he walked towards the 2 of them. Holding a delicate little box in her hand, she asked, Is this Miss Ning Shuifei? It's me. What can I do for you? Ning Shuifei and Lin Yi looked at each other. The old shopkeeper of the Eastern Chamber of Commerce asked me to give you a present. He said that it's a late birthday present, so please accept it. Qian Rui calmly handed the box over to Ning Shuifei. Eastern Commerce? Ning Shuifei could not help but feel a little surprised. She had heard from her mother that this was an extremely powerful super chamber of commerce, but its activities had always been limited to the Eastern Continent. Therefore, it wasn't very well known on the other Heaven Stage Islands, but it was a colossus in the Eastern Continent. Ning Shuifei had never heard that West Island had a relationship with this Eastern Chamber of Commerce. But since it had sent a gift to her, it was not good to refuse it directly. Maybe it wanted to build a good relationship and was ready to expand. Having such a super chamber of commerce was good for West Island, so she had to accept the gift. In that case, please thank the old shopkeeper for me. I will visit him in person when I have the chance. Ning Shuifei nodded slightly. In front of outsiders, she still behaved appropriately. After all, it was related to the image of the whole West Island, so she could not be careless. Okay, then I'll leave now. Qian Rui smiled slightly. He immediately turned around and left the newcomer yard. When he passed the gate, he couldn't help but raise a proud smile, because he had seen a white shadow quickly approaching from the corner of his eye. Everything was going according to plan. After watching Qian Rui go out, Ning Shuifei opened the box with great interest. Looking at the milky white elixir in it, she suddenly jumped with excitement. As an alchemist, Lin Yi couldn't tell what elixir it was, but she recognized it at a glance. Beauty elixir. This is the legendary beauty elixir. 7th grade beauty elixir? Lin Yi looked at it and was slightly surprised. This was really a big deal. In the market, it was a priceless thing. No matter how many spiritual jades you had, you might not be able to buy it. At this moment, a white figure jumped over the wall and came behind them in an instant. He instantly appeared behind the two of them and stretched out his hand to grab Ning Xuefei. His target was the beauty pill in her hand. Ning Xuefei was shocked. She was immersed in the excitement of getting the beauty elixir at the moment, and she didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack her from behind. This was Shangyun College. Who was so bold to make trouble in such a place? Of course, with Ning Xuefei's strength, even if she was prepared, she couldn't react at all. Fortunately, Lin Yi was beside her. At the moment when this person jumped over the wall, Lin Yi had already noticed it. Go away. Facing the white figure who suddenly appeared, Lin Yi didn't hesitate to use 1,000 legs of frenzy. Before the white figure could touch a hair of Ning Xuefei, Lin Yi directly kicked her back. The white-clothed figure grunted. Logically speaking, if the ambush didn't work, the person should escape as quickly as possible. After all, causing trouble in a place like this wouldn't end well. However, this person uncharacteristically stopped. Lin Yi's 1,000 fiery kicks only forced her back and didn't injure her. Who are you? Lin Yi looked at the person coldly. To his surprise, judging from the figure and temperament, this person was actually a woman. However, her face was tightly covered with a white cloth, and only a pair of eyes could be seen. Lin Yi couldn't see what she looked like exactly. Hand over the beauty elixir. Yang Qinxue didn't even look at Lin Yi. She just stared at the box in Ning Xuefei's hand, which contained the beauty elixir that she dreamed of. Who are you? Why? Hearing this, Ning Xuefei was immediately unhappy. Although with her appearance and temperament, she didn't need this kind of thing at all. This thing was like super cosmetics. No woman would easily take it out and give it to someone, let alone a stranger who came with bad intentions. After all, no one would refuse to make themselves more beautiful. Leave now, or don't blame me for being too harsh. Lin Yi's face also became cold. If it was under normal circumstances, he wouldn't mind asking the whole story. But now, Ning Xuefei had just entered Soaring Cloud Academy, and on the second day, someone came to make trouble unscrupulously. If he didn't be harsh, he didn't know how many troubles would be waiting for Ning Xuefei after he left. Chapter 4794. The surrounding flowers and trees were even covered with a thick layer of white frost, which was a terrible sign of an approaching blizzard. This woman's strength was not simple. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched slightly. The effect of this world of ice and snow was not only freezing the surrounding environment, but the most terrible thing was that even the blood flowing in his body showed a faint sign of freezing. Although it was not completely frozen, the speed of true qi circulation was still inevitably affected, and he could only exert 80% of his strength at most. Even Lin, it was like this. If it was someone else, it would only be worse. Maybe they wouldn't even be able to exert half of their strength. In front of this woman, masters of the same level were completely beaten up by her. Xiangyun Academy was really full of geniuses. In an instant, Yang Qinxue had turned into a snow shadow and appeared next to Ning Xuefei again. Just like before, neither Lin Yi nor Ning Xuefei was her target. From the beginning to the end, she just wanted to grab the beauty pill, and she didn't care about anything else. Get out! Lin Yi glanced at this woman coldly. Even if the opponent's strength was not to be underestimated, she was only at the peak of Yuanying stage after all. For him, who could instantly kill a master of the profound ascending stage, no matter how strong a peak of Yuanying stage was, it would not pose any threat to him. Lin Yi raised his hand and unleashed a fiery fist before he even finished his sentence. A fiery shadow appeared out of nowhere, forcing the opponent back once more. Even the ice and snow around him melted at the same time. It didn't matter when or where, the fact that fire could subdue ice would never change. Yang Qinxue's expression changed, and she finally looked at Lin Yi seriously. Previously, she found that this guy was only at the middle stage of Yuanying stage, so she didn't take him seriously, but she didn't expect that this person's strength was so strong that he could easily break her ice and snow domain. I only want the beauty pill. I don't want to hurt anyone. Don't force me. Because of the serious injury, Yang Qinshue's voice was obviously a little hoarse and weak. Only then did Lin Yi notice the abnormality of the opponent's state. Logically speaking, if a master at the peak of Yuanying stage was seriously injured, he shouldn't have such strong strength, unless the opponent was a freak like him, but it didn't seem like it. There was only one possibility. Before the injury, the opponent's strength was far above the peak of the nascent soul realm. In other words, he was at least a mysterious ascending stage master. This discovery made Lin Yi secretly speechless. Even if the other party was a profound ascending stage master, he wouldn't be so unreasonable as to rush over to snatch the beauty pill, right? Turning his head to look at Ning Shuifei, who was hugging the beauty pill tightly in her arms like a mother hen protecting her chicks, Lin Yi was instantly speechless. In the face of the temptation of the beauty pill, women really couldn't be measured with common sense. You're here to snatch something, and you're telling me not to force you? Hee hee. Is there something wrong with your brain? Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. No matter who Ning Shuifei was, no matter what difficulties she had, there was no room for negotiation. If Ning Shuifei didn't like this kind of thing, she wouldn't be able to gain a foothold in Soaring Cloud Academy in the future. Then don't blame me. Anger flashed in Yang Qinshue's eyes, and the surrounding temperature dropped again, much more fiercely than before. Just now, the flowers and trees were only covered with frost, but now, icicles were directly hanging down. If there was no Zhanqi to protect the body, ordinary people couldn't hold on here for even a minute. At the same time, Yang Qinsue made another move. Her figure disappeared into the world of ice and snow, and her whole body seemed to evaporate into thin air. Not only could she not be found by the naked eye, but even the divine sense couldn't detect her for a while. Lin Yi couldn't help but show a trace of a dignified expression. He didn't expect this woman to have such a clever method. She could even hide from his divine sense. She was really not simple. However, Lin Yi still found some clues. This world of ice and snow actually couldn't really isolate the divine sense like the sea fog or the miasma. As long as he was willing, his divine sense could still be used here without any hindrance. But there was no way to detect the other party. This was actually a smokescreen, but ordinary smokescreen could only deceive the vision. But this smokescreen before him was very clever, and it could even deceive the divine sense. To put it bluntly, this was an extremely clever psychological suggestion. It would only make you pay attention to the things that it wanted you to pay attention to, but make you subconsciously ignore the things that it really wanted to hide. After figuring this out, Lin Yi's heart instantly calmed down. Although he still couldn't lock onto the woman's position for a while, as long as he eliminated the places that his divine sense had swept past, the remaining places would definitely have places where the other party was hiding. Moreover, there was one more thing that could be used. Since the other party's target was the beauty pill in Ning Shuifei's hands, then she would definitely wait for an opportunity to snatch it. Combining this with his deduction, it wouldn't be difficult to deduce the other party's hiding place. Frenzy 8 Trigram Palm. Without any warning, Lin Yi suddenly attacked the right rear. Ning Shuifei looked back in confusion, and her eyes immediately widened. After being swept by Lin Yi's palm, a wretched figure suddenly appeared in the originally empty place. Yang Qinsue was sent flying, and then she spat out a large mouthful of blood. Injuries on top of injuries. Her face became even paler, and her gaze towards Lin Yi was filled with shock and disbelief. Ah! Ning Shuifei suddenly cried out, and even Lin Yi's expression changed. The two of them looked at Yang Qinsue at this moment, speechless. The white cloth on the other party's face had been scraped off by the true qi just now, and shockingly revealed a hideous face riddled with holes. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. No wonder the other party would disregard everything to come and snatch the beauty pill. From the looks of it, her face should have been deliberately destroyed by someone. First, it was permeated by poison, and then it was roasted by raging fire. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been reduced to this hideous appearance. Only now did young Qinxue realize that her face wasn't covered at all. Her entire person instantly screamed madly as if she had been stimulated, and she fell to the ground in a panic as she retreated repeatedly. She was even more terrified than Ning Xuefei, who had been frightened by her. She had become a completely crazy woman, and there was not the slightest trace of the aura of an expert from before. Ning Xuefei was so frightened that she hid behind Lin Yi. Looking at the woman's eyes in front of her, she couldn't bear to look at this woman in front of her. After thinking for a moment, she took out the beauty pill and handed it to Lin Yi, saying, "Why don't you give it to her?" After all, she was a kind-hearted girl. She naturally wouldn't allow the other party to directly snatch it. But now that she saw the other party in such a pitiful and disheveled state, Ning Xuefei really couldn't bear to do it. Besides, this beauty pill wasn't of much use to her. At most, it would just be the icing on the cake, but to this person, it was a life-saving straw. Chapter 4795. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't toss the pill at himself. He might be pitiful, but he wasn't so unprincipled that he'd go along with the guy's every whim. There was only one thing he adhered to, and that was that no matter what they did, they had to pay the price. Since they dared to steal something in broad daylight, they had to be prepared for it. "Who are you?" Lin Yi asked again. Before figuring out the whole story, he wouldn't throw the beauty pill over even if he felt pity. Yang Qinxue turned a deaf ear to this, still crying in panic. She seemed to have lost her soul, and it seemed that she couldn't communicate at all. Lin Yi sighed, motioned Ning Xuefei to step aside, and immediately went forward to stabilize this woman. With his means, he couldn't guarantee anything else, but it shouldn't be difficult to temporarily stabilize the other's emotions. However, before Lin Yi got close, the jade pendant was alerted, and suddenly there was a furious scolding from above. "You're courting death." An incomparably majestic chi pressed down, and Lin Yi was shocked. Even he might not be able to withstand such strength. Fortunately, the warning of the jade pendant gave him time to react in advance, and he immediately used the super butterfly micro step to retreat, barely escaping. Looking up, standing in front of Lin Yi at this time was a slender young man with a cold temperament. Young Qinxue, who had lost her soul, was already in his arms. Although she still let out a few panic screams from time to time, it was obvious that she had calmed down a lot. It seemed that the two should be a couple. "You hurt Qinxue?" The young man looked at Lin Yi coldly. His eyes were like knives, making people feel a stabbing pain. "Yes," she inexplicably rushed in to steal the beauty pill. "I naturally had to fight back." Lin Yi looked at this person with a faint fear in his eyes. Just now, the chi that fell from the sky had already led him judge that the other party was a profound ascension early stage master, but definitely not an ordinary profound ascension early stage master. With Lin Yi's current strength, let alone a profound ascension early stage master, even a peak profound ascension early stage master could be easily killed, but facing this person, he didn't have the confidence to win. Lin Yi roughly estimated that this person's true strength was at least equivalent to profound ascension late stage, or even stronger. Beauty pill. The young man's expression changed slightly. He looked at the box in Lin Yi's hand, and then looked down at Yang Qinxue, who was shivering in his arms. He suddenly said, "Give me the beauty pill, and today's matter will be written off." Lin Yi froze, speechless as he looked at the man and woman who were hugging each other. As expected, the woman was trying to take the beauty pill away from him. It was understandable, considering what she'd been through, but the man was acting like this. Was there no normal person in Soaring Cloud Academy? Lin Yi froze, speechless as he looked at the man and woman who were hugging each other. "Sir, you don't seem to understand the situation." "That's right, I did injure her, but she was the one who tried to snatch the item first. At most, we can call it even. Why should I give you the beauty pill?" Lin Yi was also a person with a temper. If the other party spoke politely, with his ability, he would be able to restore this woman's appearance even without the beauty pill. However, if she used force, then there was nothing much to say. I'll say it again. Give me the beauty pill, and today's matter will be written off. The young man continued to speak indifferently. It seemed that he was not going to reason at all. Of course, if he really wanted to reason, the reason was indeed not on his side. So there is no room for negotiation? Linny's expression suddenly turned cold. The box containing the beauty pill in his hand disappeared in an instant under the young man's nose. He said lightly, "Please go back. By the way, pity is not a bargaining chip to threaten others. She is pitiful to be disfigured like this, but what's the big deal? Who are you saying is pitiful?" The young man's cold temperament suddenly became a little more angry. "Haven't you heard it, Lung Rufin? In this guy's eyes, you two are two pitiful worms, ha ha." Suddenly, Ren Zhengyuan's laughter came from the gate of the courtyard, and then he walked in carelessly, followed by Xiao Tian and the others. Seeing these people appear, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little strange. Thinking back, he felt that today's matter was a little strange. Could it be that these guys were behind it? Is it you guys who are behind it? Lung Rufin's gaze suddenly turned to Ren Zhengyuan and the others with an unfriendly expression. Ren Zhengyuan and Yi Xiaotian were shocked at the same time. They appeared just to add fuel to the fire and enjoy Lin Yi's deflated expression. It couldn't be that the case was solved so quickly, right? Behind it? What the hell? We just heard someone screaming and rushed over to watch the show. Lung, don't casually slander good people. I advise you to focus on dealing with this brat who hit your woman. He's very strong. Ren Zhengyuan calmly tried to clear his name. Sure enough, after hearing this, Lung Rufin's gaze fell on Lin Yi again. Just now, this sentence was just a casual test. Whether there was someone behind it or not, it was a fact that this guy had hit Yang Qianxue. He saw it with his own eyes. Just based on this guy already deserved to die. Lung Rufin, I heard that you've been looking for beauty elixir and thunder Xian pill all over the world recently. It seems that you have found the right person. This guy is both things. I have already reminded you to this point, so you can do as you see fit. Yi Xiaotian instigated at the right time. You have thunder Xian pill? Lung Rufin's eyes shrank. Even the resource-rich East Continent College, things like thunder Xian pill were not easy to get. Because of its practicality, it was the rarest of all the 7th grade elixirs. A thunder Xian pill casually released on a market would face at least hundreds of times more competitors than the beauty elixir. I'm not sure if he has refined the thunder Xian pill, but this guy got a whole thunder Xian vine during the trial in West Island, so he became the son-in-law of West Island. If you can get the thunder Xian vine from him, give me half, and I can ask my father to refine it into a thunder Xian pill for you. Ren Zhengyuan said with a smile. He could punish Lin Yi and get the thunder Xian vine at the same time, which was a good thing to kill two birds with one stone. Being instigated by these two people, Lung Rufin, who had the intention to attack Lin Yi, suddenly became more determined. He was not a good person. For Yang Qianxue, he could be the enemy of the whole world, let alone the son-in-law of West Island, who he did not know at all. However, Lung Rufin did not attack immediately, but said to Lin Yi, I want the beauty elixir and the thunder Xian vine. Name your price. Chapter 4796. I'm sorry, I won't sell either of these things. Lin, he said lightly. The other party didn't look like he was here to talk business, but to force him to buy or sell. With his temper, it would be impossible for him to agree. Ren Zhengyuan and the others let out a sigh of relief. It was a good thing that Lin, he had a stubborn temper, or they would have lost a beauty pill for nothing. You won't sell it? Lung Rufin's face changed. He looked down at Yang Qianxue in his arms with pity, and said with a fierce look, since you won't sell it, I will beat you until you sell it. Physical fight or civil fight, you choose one. It seemed that he couldn't avoid this battle today. Linny thought of something and said calmly, what about physical fight? What about civil fight? Physical fight is a private fight, and it's up to fate by hook or by crook. I will take the beauty elixir and thunder Xian Rot Tan after I kill you. As for civil fight, it's a public challenge, and everything will be according to the rules of the challenge. If you lose, you must hand over these two things. Lung Rufin looked at Lin Yi and said slowly, "Then let's fight." Lin Yi said lightly. He wasn't afraid of any physical fight, but it might involve Ning Xuefei. Even if the possibility was not very high, it was still a hidden danger, and he didn't want Ning Xuefei to be in any danger. "Okay, then let's do it." Lung Rufin held Yang Qianxue in his arms and turned to leave. Lin Yi's choice saved him a lot of trouble. After all, he was the son-in-law of West Island, and if a private fight killed someone, the higher-ups of the college would definitely not let it go. But since it was a public challenge, there was nothing to say. Even if the Lord of West Island came in person, he had nothing to say. Wait, Lin, he suddenly stopped, just when everyone thought he was going to regret. He squinted at Lung Rufin and said, "You haven't said what you will do if you lose." "If I lose, I can't hand over the beauty elixir and thunder Xianrot Tan, and if you lose, nothing will happen, right? Don't be so shameless." "I won't lose." Lung Rufin didn't even look at Lin Yi. He paused for a moment. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't follow him, he turned around and said, "What do you want?" "My fiancé just so happens to lack a bodyguard." Lin Yi thought for a bit. He had already seen the tip of the iceberg of Lung Rufin's strength. He was indeed a very troublesome enemy, and a man who was infatuated with love was not a bad person. If Ning Xuefei had such a bodyguard by her side, then he could do his own things without worry. Lung Rufin did not object. After a cold snort, Lin Yi immediately took the lead and walked to the arena. This arena was specially designed for the disciples of different academies to fight with each other. Although Lin Yi wasn't a disciple of Soaring Cloud Academy, he had a special identity. Moreover, his opponent was Lung Rufin, so there was no problem with using the arena. Rinzhong Yi shouted Yan, and the others looked at each other and smiled. Although the two of them unexpectedly chose to fight in public, as long as they fought, their goal had been achieved. After all, even if it was a fight, they could still kill each other. When they arrived at their destination, the originally lively arena suddenly quieted down, and even the people who had arranged a fight in the arena stopped spontaneously. They all looked at Lung Rufin in awe. This was the undefeated legend of the arena, and the longest winning record in the arena was created by him. Lung Rufin had fought his way up step by step from being unknown to being famous all over the world. He was in this place. He was the invincible god. The two of them walked to the largest arena in the middle one after another, and the news that Lung Rufin had arranged a fight with someone spread like wildfire. Soon, a large number of spectators gathered in the arena, and all of them were inquiring about the background of Lin Yi. When they heard that this person was the son-in-law of West Island, the atmosphere suddenly became more and more enthusiastic. The cold-faced machete god against the son-in-law of West Island, which was a natural and huge gimmick. That was to say, this place did not charge tickets. Otherwise, it would at least be a very considerable astronomical income. Lin Yi, you have to be careful. Ning Xuefei leaned under the arena and shouted. She didn't know how strong Lung Rufin was. She only knew that Lin Yi was very strong. In terms of confidence, she was more than Lin Yi himself. Lin Yi smiled and gave her a reassuring look, but when he turned his head to face Lung Rufin, his expression suddenly became serious and dignified. He obviously didn't do anything, but he made him feel a lot of pressure. This guy was really extraordinary. While the two of them were confronting each other, people on the sidelines had spontaneously lit a stick of incense for them. The winner would be decided within the time it took to burn a stick of incense. This was the conventional rule. Then let's start, Lung Rufin said as he walked towards Lin Yi. He didn't release any aura, nor did he use any martial skills. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation of pure energy. He just walked towards Lin Yi like that. Was he underestimating the enemy? Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. Seeing that the opponent was already within 3 steps, he did not dare to hesitate. He raised his hand and used a raging fire 8 trigrams palm. Although this was not his strongest martial arts skill now, it was the most convenient martial arts skill to use, and it was enough to pose a threat to the masters of the profound ascending stage. In the face of the raging fire 8 trigrams palm, Lung Rufin's body still did not have any fluctuations of genuine chi. He just raised his hand into the shape of a palm blade. With a light wave, the raging fire 8 trigrams palm was suddenly smashed out of thin air. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he watched, and the crowd was boiling. Ren Zhongyuan patted Yi Xiaoyan's shoulder excitedly and said, "The one surnamed Lung is still powerful. This kid can't be his opponent at all. Let's see whether he'll be beaten to death or beaten half to death today. Hee." Whether Lin Yi died or not, Ren Zhongyuan could vent the anger in his heart. Evil people needed to be tortured by evil people. Whether it was Lung Rufin or Lin Yi, they were both thorns in his eyes. A beauty pill could make the two dogs bite each other, and he could also take the opportunity to get the Thunder Xian vine. This business was absolutely profitable. You only have this little strength? Then hurry up and admit defeat. Otherwise, I'm afraid I can't stop, and you will die. Lung Rufin looked at Lin Yi and frowned. Although it was for Yang Qinxue, if he could solve the problem without killing, it would be the best situation. He was not a fool who only knew how to fight and kill. In fact, when he saw Yang Qinxue injured before, he still had some expectations for the strength of Lin Yi. Even if Yang Qinxue's strength was now reduced to the peak of the nascent soul realm, she was still an invincible existence in the nascent soul realm. This kid could hurt her with the cultivation of the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, so it should not be easy. But now it seemed that Lung Rufin felt that he was still thinking too much. Yang Qinxue was now mentally injured and unstable. It was not surprising that she was hurt by anyone. It was just this kid's good luck. Chapter 4797. Really, Lung Rufin still didn't intend to attack. He just walked towards Lin Yi step by step. He didn't have a monstrous aura, but he gave people an incomparably terrifying pressure. Every step he took made people's heart suddenly heavy, and in the end, they couldn't even breathe. If it was someone else, they would have already surrendered, but his opponent was Lin Yi. Who was Lin Yi? Even the giant evil cultivators at the opening mountain stage couldn't do anything to him. No matter how powerful Lung Rufin was, he was just a profound ascending stage master. How could Lin Yi retreat because of this pressure? Since the opponent didn't take the initiative to attack, Lin Yi wouldn't be polite to him. The Zhen Qi in his body quickly circulated, and with a thought, he directly used the Raging Flame Thousand Burst Fist. The huge arena was suddenly covered by the monstrous flame, and there were constantly loud explosions. Even the disciples of Soaring Cloud Academy who were watching the battle couldn't help but look at each other. As expected of a person who could become the prince consort of the West Island, he really wasn't simple. With the power of the Raging Flame Thousand Burst Fist, an ordinary profound ascending stage master wouldn't be able to withstand it, but Lin Yi didn't think that it could cause any decent threat to Lung Rufin. His opponent was a monster who was comparable to a profound ascending stage master. If a Raging Flame Thousand Burst Fist could be effective, then it would be too whimsical. With the perfect cover of the Raging Flame Thousand Burst Fist, Lin Yi didn't hesitate to use the Super Butterfly micro steps. His body was like a ghost drifting in the sea of fire. In this way, even if the opponent used his divine sense, he wouldn't be able to easily lock his position. After all, the Raging Flame Thousand Burst Fist also had quite a hindrance to the use of divine sense. Sure enough, Lung Rufin stood motionless in the center of the explosion. Although the Raging Flame Thousand Burst Fist couldn't hurt him at all, it still played a perfect cover effect, allowing Lin Yi to sneak behind him without anyone noticing. Amidst the heaven-shaking explosions, there was a deep dragon roar mixed in. An extremely powerful 5-element killing aura, with a hint of the 5-poison flood dragon shadow, pounced towards Lung Rufin's defenseless back. Done. Lin Yi's spirit was lifted. With the power of his 5 elements' murderous chi, any profound ascending stage master would not be able to escape unscathed. This was a killing move that originated from the Sea Fisher stage. Even if Lin Yi could only learn 30% of it, it was not something a master of this level could withstand. However, in the next moment, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. The rumbling, raging flame, 1,000 explosions stopped abruptly, and the flames that shot up into the sky disappeared as well. The entire arena turned into a world of ice and snow, freezing the blood of the spectators and making it hard for their chi to flow. The effect. Lin Yi. Murderous Lin Yi. Lin, bye, cannon bye, and comma Lin Kanyang to say. Lin to bye, comma, bye. I Lin, comma. But what shocked Lin the most was not this, but that in his opponent's hand, he was actually holding his 5 elements murderous chi. This guy could actually grab the 5 elements murderous chi with his bare hands. Not bad, but useless, Lung Rufin said coldly, and then an almost transparent ice blade suddenly appeared in his other hand. With a silent slash, the 5 elements murderous chi in his hand was directly cut in half, and then disappeared into thin air. Silence. The audience was silent. Lin Yi had seen a lot of strong enemies, but it was the first time he had seen an opponent like Lung Rufin. Even when he was facing the West Mountain Old Master, he was not as shocked as he was now. When facing the West Mountain Old Master, he knew that there was a great disparity in strength, so he felt that it was reasonable for the other party to use any kind of heaven-defying means. But this Lung Rufin was different. Lin Yi thought that he should have the power to fight, but after seeing this shocking scene, he suddenly knew that he was thinking too much. In the end, his own strength was too low. With a mere Yuanying middle stage, facing a master comparable to the mysterious Ascension late stage, no matter how he looked at it, it was too difficult. If he could win like this, it would be abnormal. But even so, it was impossible for Lin Yi to admit defeat so easily. On the contrary, he was really excited at this time. Some people are weak when they meet strong people, and some people are stronger when they meet strong people. Lin is obviously the latter. Seeing the increasingly turbulent fighting spirit in Lin Yi's eyes, Lung Rufin's expressionless face changed slightly. He slowly raised the ice blade in his hand and pointed it at Lin Yi and said, "Admit defeat or die." Lin Yi's pupils suddenly shrank. The impression this guy gave before was already terrifying enough. Now that there was an ice blade, this unparalleled pressure increased more than 10 times. It felt like a mountain was pressing on top of his head. Not to mention resisting, it was rare to be able to stabilize his body at this time. Blade momentum. A thought suddenly flashed in Lin Yi's mind. This was the legendary realm that all swordsmen dreamed of. It was different from the aura created by strong chi and strength. Instead, it was purely based on the dedication and understanding of the blade, and forcibly achieved a blade momentum that could fight against heaven and earth. A swordsman paid attention to the unity of man and sword, while a swordsman paid attention to forming a world of their own. Once the blade momentum was formed, no one could resist it. Lin Yi's heart was shocked. He never thought that his opponent would be a monster who had cultivated the blade momentum. No wonder he could split the 5 elements of killing intent with one strike. How could he still fight? Seeing that Lin Yi was unwilling to admit defeat, Lung Rufin did not have the patience to continue to wait. Without saying anything, he slashed with his blade. The ice blade that was originally only a few feet long, when it reached Lin Yi's head, it had grown into a giant blade that was several feet long. Ning Xuefei, who was in the audience, suddenly turned pale with fright. If this continued, Lin Yi's whole body would be cut in half. Fortunately, this extremely dangerous scene did not last for too long. When Ning Xuefei looked at the stage again through the gap between her fingers, Lin Yi had already flashed 10 feet away. It seemed that he should be safe. A little interesting. Lung Rufin suddenly looked up at Lin Yi. No one knew the power of the world of ice and snow better than him. This kind of environment could be said to limit the function of the body to an abnormal level. coupled with the destructive power of the blade, not to mention a trivial nascent soul stage master. Even a profound, ascending stage master of the same level would not be able to move. However, unexpectedly, the speed that Lenny showed just now was still very impressive. It seemed that there was not much difference from before. This was really incredible. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.